Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. Oh, I didn't hit go live. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. All right, ladies and gentlemen, happy Sunday and welcome to Sab's podcast. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. Ladies and gents, I am back. I am biggie back. Missed you guys on a Thursday night. I was actually at a concert out of town. That's why I was not live streaming on Thursday. I hope you guys are staying cool. Are you trying to stay cool? It is very hot and humid where I am, and it's been this way for the past couple of days. So I hope everybody is staying hydrated, because I know I can tell you Thursday night, being outside for a concert, it was brutal. Even after 9 o'clock, it was still very humid, and we were just like waiting for a breeze. So I hope you guys are staying cool. But welcome to Sab's podcast, ladies and gents. We are live on X and Rumble and, of course, YouTube. And tonight we have quite a bit to discuss. Tonight's theme is These Folks Are Pissed. These folks are pissed, ladies and gents. So without further ado, let's go ahead and give some shout outs to people in the chat. We have so much to get into, ladies and gents. Yeah. Shout out to Craig. Hey, Sabby, we already knew about this ish. Trump and both sons and Jared can't get out of this one, and the Qatar plane that he officially bought, and they are wrapped it up as a gift. Yeah, we have a lot to get into. Shout out to Jen, and thank you for the super chat. I am convinced Zios and Hakeem scam planned against CBC. You know, that wouldn't surprise me. You must have saw the earlier video about Will Lawrence, who already is pivoting on, supporting Hakeem Jeffries and the CBC. So yeah, would not surprise me. Greetings. I know myself. I don't trust Al Sayed. He's Kamala. I think you mean he got Kamala's endorsement. That's a milquetoast. He may be a psyop. We'll get all into it, ladies and gents. Greetings, Ronnie. I don't trust any politician. If their mouth is moving, they are lying. Greetings, Lawrence says doobie doo. Shout out to Silver Server says, Sabby, can you please do a deep dive of the benefits of utilizing cannabis hemp for all our needs? Jack Herr's book, The Emperor Wears No Clothes, is a great place to start. I talked about that a while ago on this show. There was a guest. I had a couple of guests come on and they talked about that, but Could be something I can dive into again. Greetings, Blockbuster says hi. Shout out to Ifari says, I think Prezi will slide and not walk. Well, okay. Well, we'll see. Greetings, Go Artist says peace. Shout out to All One Same says groomed Al Sayed. We're going to get all into it, ladies and gents. Greetings, Miguel says peace. Shout out to Little Wisdom says soon. Greetings, Laura says hello, Sabby family, big kiss. Shout out to Little Goddess says happy Sunday, Sabby. Eric in chat. Greetings, bop, bop, bop. Ryan, Byron Donald, Erica Kirk, and Donald Trump are actors and actresses. Yes, they are. Someone's been watching. Shout out to CBC Voters says happy Sunday, Sabby and Eric T. Red. Greetings, Good Food Only says Sabby is back. Yes, I am. And shout out to What Is Going On? Hannah says, okay, I'm ready. Yeah. And shout out to Volvo says, hey, Cookie. Well, hello to you too. Hello. Is it me you're looking for? All right. We have so much to get into, ladies and gents. Without further ado, let's go ahead and give a shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you guys so much for your support. Really do appreciate you, fam. Hello, hello. If you are interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories for you, folks. We have the ultimate, the Sabinators. Don't forget about those Sabsters. They're pretty cool. We all love the Sabbies as well. You know, they're not too shabby. And of course, last but not least, we got to give a shout out to the members. Thank you so much to all of you. All of their names are here, and you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen throughout the show. Hello. Is it me you're looking for? Now I got the song stuck in my head. I got to tell you guys something really quick before we dive into the first story. So the concert I went to Thursday night was a BTS concert. If you don't know who BTS is, I don't know what to tell you. They're like the biggest group in the world. It's a K-pop group, and they've been probably one of the more longer lasting K-pop groups. And they also were able to cross over, meaning that they were able to make songs that are partially in English. They're basically an international success. And there was something I noticed, like when I was at the concert. I know some of you probably laughing. You might have seen my video on X. My sister is to blame for this, by the way. My little sister is the one who got me into like some of this K-pop stuff. So I blame her. But anyway, there was something I noticed like when I was at that show. Like BTS has an actual, they call their fans their army. They're like, this is the BTS army. And, you know, looking at all the people who were there, this was at Gillette Stadium and it was huge, a lot of people. And I just say to myself, you know, all of these people come together for the music. I thought I was going to be the oldest like person there. I was not. I saw grandmas there. I saw like a whole family show up where the dad had, all of them had on a BTS jersey, including the dad, the mom, and the kids, like everybody coming together. And I had to say to myself, like, why is it that so many people like this group? Right? Like, obviously, you know, girls are going to love like boy bands, but why is it that all these other people, what is it that is making them gravitate towards this group? And the thing is this is like their songs make you happy. Their music makes you happy. And also it gives you hope. Nothing but good vibes at that show, nothing but positivity. And sometimes, you know, it's nice to like reflect on that for just a second. Because when I get into this conversation Tuesday night, when we talk about what it means to actually have a movement, when I talk about the numbers, this is what I'm talking about. BTS can show up tomorrow and have hundreds of thousands of people there waiting to see them. They call their fans their army, their army. Do you get what I'm saying? People had the little lights that they would wave in the air, and every song had a different color. These 6 guys have a movement of people across the globe. It's not even close. Like I'm here to tell you the number of people, guys, women, grandmas, grandpas that I saw there. I saw someone there who had a sign who was a cancer survivor. And they said, the sign said, cancer did not stop me from getting here. When we talk about building a movement, it has to be so inspiring that even something like that, the person who had the sign that said cancer didn't stop me from being here, it has to inspire people in that type of way. And I'll get more into this Tuesday night when we get into like the movement deep dive, because they have the numbers. Now, they don't live here in the US, but this is what I'm talking about when I say the numbers. And all those people came together, regardless of political ideology or any other issues that they may disagree on, for one reason and one reason only: to listen to the music that they love to hear live. One of the big ways, I think, to unite people is music. And I think that's a piece that's missing. But let's carry on, ladies and gents. Saul said, we need a band, Sabs. We need a band. Yes. We need a band. Yeah, music is something that brings everybody together. All right. So let's go ahead and show you that thumbnail, because again, like I said, we have a lot to get into tonight, ladies and gents. Tonight, we are discussing, oh, buddy, oh, buddy, oh, buddy, oh, buddy. A lot of things are happening in the Middle East. Saudi Arabia's oil was struck just recently. That was reported early Sunday morning by Yemen. Larry Johnson is going to be joining us to discuss that. Also, this recent report that Donald Trump may walk away. He may walk away without trying to get a nuclear agreement. This is the report that just came through. There's a lot of chaos that is happening apparently in the Situation Room, where people are getting very angry and Trump is angry, and they realize that this is not a winner. So there's a lot that's happening, folks. And Larry's going to break that down for us, as well as this new Middle East NATO that just formed between Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, and Turkey. What does this mean now that Yemen just struck Saudi Arabia's oil, right? Because technically, as I reported on Saturday, that would mean that Turkey and Pakistan can also respond. If you attack one of them, you attack all of them. That's the new Middle East NATO. We're also going to discuss, if you haven't heard about this, that jobs report is back, and Donald Trump right now, it is reporting that he is losing non-college voters. This is bad for the Trump administration, because that is a good portion of his base. It's coming down. I told you, what did I say? Economy. We're also going to discuss El Sayed is facing backlash from the left and from the right. Damn, he is getting hit by both sides. We're going to tell you why, and I want to see what you guys think about all of that. We're also going to discuss, it appears the defund the police movement is back in the topic again. And it is very clear that Bernie Sanders and many others have decided to move away from this issue and not to support it. What does that mean about movements? Brianna Joy Gray is pushing back heavily against this. We're going to get into all of that. And last but not least, this is wild and crazy, but I told you guys Byron Donalds was an actor. It appears that James Fishback, who is one of the candidates that is running for the Florida gubernatorial race, has released a press conference stating that Byron Donalds is allegedly under investigation for sex trafficking. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what to tell you, but 2026 has been absolutely crazy. And here we are. It's like, here we are. So much to get into, ladies and gents. Let's go ahead and get into that first story. Again, tonight's theme is These Folks Are Pissed. If you have not done so, do me a solid and smash that like button. Thank you. And if you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share, just like a Care Bear. Let's keep it moving and grooving, folks. And let's go ahead and dive into that first story. Hey. All right. Donald Trump, the economy is really hitting his administration hard. And now that jobs report has been released, it is not looking good for the Trump administration. But more importantly, it is not looking good for the American people, including some of those who voted for Donald Trump. And they are speaking out against this. Let's go ahead and dive in, ladies and gents. That jobs report is a doozy.
Washington, where we're tracking some troubling new signs for the job market in an economy already rattled by the ongoing Iran war, as the conflict shows few signs of ending, despite a flurry of diplomacy that notably does not appear to include the U.S. All of it a sharp reality check for President Trump, who has sought to sell a more positive spin on the issues tied to the economy and affordability with the midterms fast approaching. The U.S. lost 23,000 jobs last month. Economists were expecting this report would show a gain in jobs.
This is not good. This is not good for the Trump administration. 23,000 jobs are lost. Unemployment rate is ticking up again to 4.1%. What do we tell you guys? Now, let's remember, under the Biden administration, we had issues with his jobs report as well. His was not great either. But the reality is, folks, given the fact that Donald Trump is not coming off of the pandemic anymore, at least not for this particular administration, there's really no excuse for this other than the fact that, of course, he went to war with Iran. That has an impact here as well. But also the reality is he has not been putting forward what he said he was going to do, which is to focus on the economy and fix it, as he said. Let's continue on more here.
Employment ticked down slightly to 4.1%, in part driven by more people giving up on looking for work. In a statement, the White House reacting to the report, saying, quote, "The Trump industrial resurgence is on schedule. It's part of a larger trend of volatility in the labor market in President Trump's second term, with the U.S. shedding jobs in 6 of the last 14 months, a pattern not seen since the Great Recession."
A pattern not seen since what? A pattern not seen since the Great Recession. This is where we're at, folks. This is not good. But see, this is what happens when you decide to put all your attention on attacking other countries. Let's change the Department of Defense to Department of War. Let's go seize Cuba. Let's kidnap Maduro. This is what happens when you turn away from the problems right here at home and you decide to focus on, more wars across the world.
It also comes as the Iran war has driven up energy prices at home. Prices at the pump are still more than $1 higher than before the war, although they've come down off their recent highs. Amid the economic turbulence, President Trump said earlier this week he deserves the highest grade possible on the issue.
We're doing an unbelievable job. Costs are coming way down. I inherited, they talk about costs. I inherited very, very high costs. And they're all coming down now. The food, the groceries, it's all coming down. We've done a great job. I think we should be given an A+ on the economy, but I think that's coming.
I'm just wondering how long before people stop believing these lies. I mean, it's obvious you can see if the prices are coming down yourself. But this is where Donald Trump is able to still hold on to a significant portion of his base, because if he already told you earlier on that the media is fake, the news is fake, then whatever you hear, if that's programmed into your brain, and don't get me wrong, we criticize corporate media quite a bit on the show, but if that is what is programmed into your brain, then you already know going into it to disregard what they say, unless, of course, it is coming from Fox News. So see, there you go. A lot of people have already been programmed to believe that it's false information. However, your eyes and your bank account should tell you the truth. Like, you should know the difference when you go to the grocery store and you realize that a package of chicken breast costs a lot more now than it did before. When you realize, if you go to the grocery store and you say, okay, I'm going to get a chuck roast because I'm going to make a pot roast, that it seems to be a lot more expensive than it was before. So your eyes should be able to tell you. So again, idolism is a hell of a drug.
Americans, however, largely disagree. More than 2/3 give the economy a poor rating, and they give the president low marks for his handling of issues surrounding the economy. The president has also struggled to convince Americans the war against Iran has been a success. Nearly 2/3 of Americans say the war is not worth fighting, and 60% disapprove of President Trump's handling of it.
So Donald Trump is waging a lot here. Yes, $35 for pot roast. I was about to say that's what it costs now. Donald Trump is dealing with two issues here, right? Like, so we say the economy can determine whether or not what's going to happen in the midterms and also what's going to happen in the next presidential election. That's true. But also, as we saw in the last presidential election in 2024, that foreign policy did play a significant, significant part in whether or not people were willing to continue to vote for the Democratic Party in 2024. And what you're seeing is he has both of these right now. The economy is a mess, and the foreign policy issues. The majority of Americans are against what is happening under this administration for both of those issues. And so the midterms is just around the corner. And before you know it, and I know it's crazy to say this right now, but before you know it, it's going to be 2028 and it's going to be the presidential election. Now, he legally can't run for office again. But honestly, like I told you, I'm not sure he's convinced on not trying to stay. And then there's just the issue of J.D. Vance as well, who's also deeply attached to this administration and part of it, and very close to Donald Trump. And this could not be good for him as well. So all the people that are surrounding themselves around Donald Trump at this point in time that are considering running for president, many of them, I think, are going to run into the same problem that Kamala Harris ran into, where no, you may not be the president, but you were still a part of the administration that caused these issues to happen.
Gap between public sentiment and the president's posture on both the war and the economy has some Republicans worried ahead of the midterms. The president addressed some of those concerns in a new interview with Punchbowl.
Your critics on the Hill, Republicans, say privately, you don't really care about Congress. You don't care about losing the majority. You'll do your thing either way. You're president. You could do
no, it's
borders.
not right.
Is that not right?
Yeah, it's not right. I'd love to win. We're going to fight hard. We raised a lot of money. I raised a lot of money for just this purpose. I'm going to spend it I'm going to help Republicans. And so when you say I don't care.
No, I didn't say that. I said some people say that.
Yeah, look, I mean, I could do a lot easier. I said to somebody, wait a minute, you don't understand. I won. I'm not campaigning. Now, that's the other thing. I get a tremendous vote. I have records in many of the states, the most votes ever in Texas and Florida and many, many states, Alabama. The question is, will they vote? Because a lot of them are very angry at Republicans, to be honest with you. They're
Why is
angry
that?
I don't know. I mean, they're angry at Republicans, but they're not angry at
interesting
me.
thing. Why?
They're angry at him. You're president of the United States.
They're not angry at me, but they are angry at Republicans.
Joining me now is NBC News senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez, NBC News business and data correspondent Brian Chung, and NBC News chief international correspondent Keir Simmons. Gabe, let me start with you at the White House. These latest jobs numbers clashing with the president's rhetoric about the economy. Take me inside your conversations with sources in the administration. What are they saying about this latest report and how it relates to the midterms?
Well, Kristen, I thought it was very interesting, the soundbite you just played there from the Punchbowl interview with the president saying that some people are upset at Republicans, but they're not upset with me. And that appears to be his thinking on this, that since he's not technically on the ballot during this midterm election, it's not really his fault. Well, that remains to be seen. You showed those poll numbers. A lot of voters very concerned about his handling of the economy. But what we're hearing from the White House today, they're really downplaying these jobs numbers. We heard from Kevin Hassett, the director of the National Economic Council, earlier today, calling these latest numbers noisy and touting what the administration sees as its economic victories, that manufacturing jobs are seeing an uptick. Although, as you pointed out, the jobs numbers are far worse than expected. The unemployment rate also ticking down, although, as you point out, that analysts say that's due in part to fewer people looking for work. Now, the White House, again, trying to make...
Why are fewer people looking for work? Yeah, guys, sorry. NBC audio does suck. Eric is right about that. Why are fewer people looking for work? Why would people apply for jobs that don't have full benefits? That could be one of the reasons. Another reason is honestly because, people are kind of fed up, man. People are kind of fed up. And looking for work and actually getting hired are two different things. So it's just, I told you guys before about quiet hiring, how a lot of times these companies post jobs, but external applicants aren't getting interviews. They've already actually selected someone that's already internal applicant for that position, but they have to post it publicly because that's required. I mean, a lot of these things that happen, but Trump can't blame this one on Biden. This is the thing. This is happening during his administration. I want you to hear from some of the Trump supporters who also came in, and I want you to hear what they had to say.
Do you feel like life is affordable in general right now? Groceries?
No, it is not. I'm on a fixed income. If we have doctor's appointments, maybe we'll have to do with something else. Food is just, it's getting outrageous.
With rent going up, gas going up, groceries going up. Two people struggling to live in a house, and we're barely scraping by.
It sounds to me like it's the big hot shots, the big corporations, the billionaires are all getting the money, and we're just being stuck.
Yep. Ding, 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 ding. She's got it. She's got it. That's what it is. People are starting to figure it out. Yeah, that's what's happening, folks. Because even though the 99%, they're struggling with these prices, the billionaires aren't struggling at all. They're totally fine. You know what it looks like to have $1 billion? So she's right. She's right. Let's give it up for grandma. Let's go ahead and give it up for the grandma. Yeah, give it up for grandma. But people are mad. People are pissed.
Under 100 days out from the midterm elections in November, and Donald Trump is struggling mightily on his central promise to the country and especially his voters, that he would deliver better than any Democrat on affordability and creating a strong economy. When asked about his party's prospects in November, Trump surprisingly acknowledged voters' growing anger. But as to who voters should direct that anger at, it couldn't be him. It's not his fault. Here's a little bit of his sit-down interview with Punchbowl News.
If I don't run, will those people go out and vote? And that's the one thing I can't say. I'm going to ask them to. A lot of them are very angry at Republicans, to be honest with you. They're
Why is that?
I don't know. I mean, they're angry at Republicans, but they're not angry at me.
Interesting thing. Why?
And you guys saw this part, right? Okay, so you saw this part. Apparently, they're angry at Republicans, but that doesn't include him, even though he's a Republican and he's the president of the United States. Really crazy. I told you if the economy continued to go down this road, people would start to move in a different direction. Let me show you what that direction looks like at this point in time. These are the new numbers. Non-college voters, the base of the MAGA movement, are abandoning the GOP. MAGA's net favorability is now negative 22 points. Again, these are the non-college voters. Let's refresh it here. Sorry, guys. Sometimes the Twitter videos do that. There we go.
What is going on, Mr. Berman? What's going on is simple. Is the MAGA movement was built among the working class, non-college Americans. And take a look at this trend line that we're looking at in the data. Here we go. Okay, net favorability rating, the MAGA movement, non-college adults. Back in October of 2024, look at that. On the plus side of the ledger, positive, plus 6 points. Down we go into the Atlantic Ocean now. Look at this movement. Now minus 22 points. That is a shift, Johnny B, of 28 points away from the MAGA movement, away with non-college Americans. So the bottom line is the group at which the Trump movement was built upon, they are shifting away and saying, we don't like MAGA anymore.
Same question.
So this is important because this is a significant portion of that Trump base, those non-college voters. He's starting to lose them now. Now, it was one thing I showed you before that he was losing those independents that voted for him in 2024. That's one thing. Like, they've been known to shift back and forth, right? We saw that with 2020, 2016, et cetera. But now we're talking about the non-college voters, which are a big part of the MAGA base. Now he's starting to lose them. Because again, when a lot of it just comes back down to economics, this is something that Donald Trump promised to fix. It was not fixed. And so now we are here.
Same poll here. This is really interesting to see these numbers move like that.
Yes, exactly right. It's the same question, same poll.
All right. So how about what the same group is saying about Donald Trump specifically?
Yeah, okay. So you know what? The idea being, okay, maybe they've soured on MAGA, but they haven't soured on MAGA, but maybe they haven't soured on me, Donald Trump might be saying. Ain't the truth. Take a look here. Okay, non-college voters on Trump. Hello. Okay, in the 2024 election, he won them by 13 points, right? That was the reason he won. He won among non-college voters, a very strong performance amongst them. And that, of course, was the reason he was able to win, because college voters were against him. But look at this now. Minus 19 points. Minus 19 points. We're talking about an even bigger shift here. We're talking about, what is this? This is a 32-point shift away from the president of the United States when it comes to his key core political group. This is why he's in so much trouble. It's not just that college voters are against Trump now. It turns out that non-college voters, the ones that he built his presidential bid on, have waved adios, goodbye, see you later, Mr. Trump.
This guy is incredibly animated, but as you guys can see, this is a problem for the Trump administration. It's not just Trump. That'll be a problem for J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio, if they run for president in 2028. But this is the thing. Economics, it's what drives people here. It's what gets people to this point. If people feel as though their economic needs are not being met, that's how you get here. You can't run on these things and say that you are going to fix it, and then people see all the money is going to the defense budget. You're over here starting all these damn wars. People are seeing that you're playing and manipulating the market so that your billionaire buddies and yourself can get rich off of the market manipulation, but you're not doing anything for the working class people. And there's a big difference between talking about affordability and actually doing something about it. So as I had warned people early on that Donald Trump did not intend to do anything for the working class, just like he didn't plan to do that during his first presidential term. When he started office, and as much criticism as I have for Barack Obama, because he didn't do the things he said he was going to do either. But when he first started his first term, he was coming off of the economy that Barack Obama had created over those 8 years. That's why it was so good for him. This time around, no. He has to blame himself. The numbers are worse now than they were during the Biden administration. And this is because of things that he did. So that's how you get there.
Don't like you anymore.
So what impact might this have on Republican House members?
Okay, Johnny B is asking the key question here, because maybe they're abandoning President Trump, but you know what? The midterm elections, they may not like Democrats either. Well, if you're a congressional Republican, you wish that to be true. I have bad news for you, because it turns out that the non-college voters are turning on you too, and it may in fact turn you out of power in the congressional elections coming up in the midterms. Choice for the House, non-college voters, 2024 election. Look at this. Republicans plus 13 points. Now, Democrats actually lead among non-college voters in an average of polls. It's just a point, but you know what? When it comes to a point, and given how well the Democrats are doing among college voters, these are the types of numbers in which blue waves are built, and therefore we can say that the key group that put Donald Trump in the White House, the key group that he built the MAGA movement upon, is leaving him, and it's leaving congressional Republicans too.
Harold Denton, thank you.
And we got to remember those independents as well. Those independents do have, quite a significance here, because there were some of them that voted for Trump in 2016, then swung and voted for Biden in 2020, and then swung back and voted for Donald Trump in 2024. That's a lot of that is economics, baby. A lot of that is economics. And so that's how you get here. So that jobs report, there's no getting around that. And what it shows is that they're not prioritizing the working class. They decided they were going to prioritize the military industrial complex, and of course, the billionaires and now trillionaires. So these folks are pissed, and they have every right to be. And I think the question is now, how much longer does this continue before people decide, you know what, we got to hit the streets. We have to have a massive movement and protest in this country that has at least 5% of the people over the class issue, over economics. Economics. We got the numbers out there for Gaza. When are we going to get the numbers out there over economic issues? Because that would be massive. And that, honestly, I think that would be the movement that could really move the needle. So that's something to think about. We'll talk a little bit more about this Tuesday when I get into that deep dive about movements and how they were able to build and what actually sparked a real revolution in this country, what it took for that to happen. And we'll dive a little bit deeper into that. But not looking good for Trump. All right, ladies and gents, let's go to some of the comments, and then we're going to dive into the next story here. Thank you for the super chat, Roger Meadows. In the end, we will win. This will be the daily chat. Thank you, Measured Man. Janine Pyro and the box of records. He said she choked when it mattered most. He told her how he felt on live TV. Measure Man says they laid off TikTok staff by email on Wednesday immediately in Nashville. Sabs. There you go. People losing the jobos. Thank you, Roger, for the super chat. Hey, anyone in Westchester or New York City looking for work, apply to Agape Transportation, no benefits, because it's a 1099 job, no W-2, but the pay is immense. Another example of not having benefits. That's what I'm saying. A lot of these jobs aren't offering benefits. Thank you, Flyaway. The whole point is mass depopulation. Yeah, I think Bill Gates has hinted towards that, and many others. Yeah. Okay. Let's go ahead and move on to the next story, ladies and gents. If you haven't done so, do me a solid and smash that like button, and let's keep it moving and grooving. Okie dokie. Abdul El Sayed, after winning the Michigan primary, is now getting backlash from both sides of the aisle. He's getting backlash from the left and he's getting backlash from the right. Let's first start with the backlash that he is receiving from the left. It all comes after this endorsement here from, what happens if I mute this? I guess not. It all comes from this endorsement here from Kamala Harris. So this is what he said. Vice President Kamala Harris understands the key role control of the U.S. Senate plays in lowering prices for Michiganders and holding Trump accountable. To achieve a Senate majority in 2026, we need to win Michigan, and that means beating Mike Rogers. Trump and his allies prey on our divisions, which is why it is so important to bring communities together right now. Her support in this race is critical to building an unstoppable coalition against Rogers, Trump, and their assault on the rights and democracy. Just like I stood with her in her effort to defeat Trump, I'm so humbled and grateful for her support in this race to defeat his minion, Mike Rogers. So this endorsement sparked a firestorm on X. This is the left criticism towards El Sayed. A lot of people are not happy about this. And I'm just going to show you some of the comments, and then I'm going to give you my perspective about it. Where was the one from Professor Zinkus? Professor Zinkus said, dude, like WTF. He's showing this example here. Kamala Harris doesn't support arms embargo on Israel, a top advisor says. He's one of the ones. Here's another one, Ali Abanima from Electronic Intifada. Genocide heirs out of politics. Oz the Boomer. Why do you insist on losing voters? We don't need this pandering to the Democratic hierarchy because they are a goddamn failure. We need revolutionaries, and you had a long time to rise to that level. I'll get to this video here in just a second. Blakely also, Dr. Ware says, so all that stuff about hating AIPAC influence was just hot air, showing all the money that she received from AIPAC. There were a number of people here, I don't know if we'll find him now, but a number of people that also said they donated to him and they're not going to donate anymore. And so let's get to this part, and I'm going to tell you my take on this. Sarah said, let's not forget who Kamala Harris is. Listen to this part here.
Refugee camp. Do you think that is a legitimate military target?
We are not telling Israel how it should conduct this war. Let me be very clear. I'm unequivocal, unwavering in my commitment to Israel's defense, and that's not going to change. I have my entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli people. The aid that we have given Israel allowed Israel to defend itself, including from Iran.
I gotta mute that because that's a song. But they're showing, of course, a lot of the disaster that happened here. And they're just reminding you of what Kamala Harris said. Remember, she said she was focused on Iran, all of these things. We must stand with Israel. Our defense relationship is critical. So they're just reminding people of all the things that Kamala Harris said and why they are not happy with El Sayed accepting this endorsement. And so to that, I say this. Many are wondering, they're like, why is he doing this? Why is he accepting that endorsement? I'm going to talk about both sides of this. For me, those are just some of the things that Kamala Harris said. But my question is, has Kamala Harris apologized? Has anybody seen Kamala Harris apologize for the things that she said about the Palestinian people, for refusing to withhold weapons from Israel? Did Kamala Harris apologize for telling the protesters that she was speaking? Did she apologize for refusing to allow the Palestinian uncommitted or the Arab American uncommitted activists to have representation at the DNC while they were begging her to please allow one of them to speak? Did she ever apologize for that? Kamala Harris has not apologized for anything. She's not apologized. She went on and did this whole book tour across the country, talking about what needs to happen and what needs to be done. I noticed she's been switching up her rhetoric recently and saying we have to start talking about things that are uncomfortable. That's the new thing she's talking about now. I noticed that, but that was what we were telling her in 2024. She didn't want to have those uncomfortable conversations. So ideally, what this is about is that Kamala Harris is most likely going to run for president again in 2028. And I think that's part of the reason why she endorsed him. I really do. I don't think she just did it out of the goodness of her heart because she really wants to defeat the Republican Mike Rogers. I think this is a benefit for her. She knows, oh, I go and I endorse him, then maybe that'll help me get that support that I did not get in Michigan in 2024 because the uncommitted voters chose not to vote for me. Maybe that'll help me. Like, I scratch his back, he scratches my back, right? And then there's the other side of it, which I'm going to show you what Wally said here. The other side of it, which is that he's trying to get those voters that he did not get in the primary, which are the voters that Haley Stevens got. So if we look at this here, Michigan Democratic Senate primary, Arab versus non-Arab voters, as you can see, Haley Stevens, she received the most non-Arab voters, but he received the most Arab American voters. Ultimately, that leads to the black vote. And one of the things I want to show you here, let me put this up. What it reveals about black voters and the Democrats in this particular race. So there was a generational divide here with black voters for El Sayed, which, you know, some of us had predicted would happen. It says here, I think that the older and more established black voters believe in incremental change. And when you start and talk to younger black voters, they want to see a whole new system. I think El Sayed has kind of tapped into that energy. What this article goes on to discuss is that most of the support that he received from black Michiganders for that primary race were from younger black people. It goes on to say here, there's a generational divide throughout the campaign. Haley Stevens, she received more of the votes from older black Michiganders. And it says here that the younger and more progressive black Michiganders were fueled by El Sayed calls for deep reforms. So there is a generational divide there. Like when people say it's just all about the black vote, people do have to understand we do have that generational divide. So essentially, he would have to get those older black voters that voted for Haley Stevens that he wasn't able to get this time around, which is probably why he accepted Kamala Harris's endorsement. Now, what people got to remember is everybody don't think like me and you, and everybody ain't watching me or some of the other, political YouTube people. The reality is, when I speak to older black voters, they support Kamala Harris. Not all of them. But even if you go back and you look at the polling day, the data, the exit polls from when Kamala ran in 2024, a lot of the older black voters supported Kamala Harris. So this seems like to me what he's trying to tap into. He's trying to get those people that supported Haley, and he's going to need them in order to beat Mike Rogers. Okay, get it, got it. But here's the thing. I personally, if Kamala Harris, now I wouldn't be running, but if I was running for president and Kamala Harris came to me and I was in that position and she said, I'm offering my endorsement to you, I would say to Kamala Harris, the people need an apology. The people need a public apology. The people, all the people, not just the Arab Americans, but all the people need an apology. Black people need an apology. Arab Americans need an apology. The people need an apology for you because you chose to dismiss the demands when you were running for office. That would be my thing. And to me, it just seemed like to accept that without asking for any type of apology. Kamala Harris didn't even go to Dearborn when she was running for office. Did you guys know that? She wouldn't even speak to the people there. It's a swing state. She needed that state and she avoided them. And that allowed Donald Trump to walk right in there and pick up some of those voters. And that's how he was able to win Michigan. So to me, it seems like, I don't know. And people are like, well, you can't get mad at him for getting the endorsement, but he doesn't have to say, I'm humbled by this. I don't, it just, to me, an apology is owed. That's how I feel about it. Now, Wally, who also talked about this, Wally, who is Palestinian American, he came onto the show. Awesome guy. I want you to hear what he said about this and how it impacts him and his family.
The West Bank Violence Prevention Act is my number one, if there's any piece of legislation that I have been obsessed with wanting to pass, it is sanctions against extremist settlers. My family is there. You guys see, whenever they get terrorized by settlers or something happens, I make a video about it. So I actually have people that are there that I love and that could die. And when I think about that, I'm not, I really like to take anything that I can do to help them, I'm going to take, and I'm not going to, I care more about helping them than I care about I care more about helping them in a realistic way. So if there's anything I could do to advance legislation, I'm willing to do it. When it comes to advancing legislation that can help them, if I can get the West Bank Violence Prevention Act to pass, I will do that. And I don't care, I don't care who I need in order to build my coalition and to do that. I'll advance it. That's important to me. Otherwise, if that doesn't happen, then I'm not going to be able to get that to pass. I think it's just kind of one of those things where you just have to understand, okay, this is kind of what there are certain things you have to do to build a coalition and to build broad support. Now, I understand if people don't agree with that, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to be so ideological that I forget reality on the ground. Especially, I'm not going to be so ideological if I have people's lives are on the line that I care about. I'm not going to spend too much time being ideological when I know that I can either be ideological or I can try to help my family that's about to get killed. There's, you kind of have to weigh them up, both out.
So that is what Wally said there, who does have family members that are in the West Bank and are at risk there. And so for his thing is he's willing, and he said this when he came onto the show, that he's willing to work with anyone that will implement those sanctions on those settlers in the West Bank so that his family can live. Right. So he said that, he made that very clear. He's willing to work with anyone that is able to make that happen. And so I think that, people have different takes on this. But to me, I just kind of feel like, dude, why did Kamala Harris has not even apologized? That's how I see it. So you got people on the left who are pissed. But now let's get to the people on the right who are pissed, and they're already pulling out all the stops to try to stop him one of these things is AIPAC. After Michigan lost, AIPAC weighs a second effort to defeat el-Sayed. Does everybody see this? They are willing to spend $32 million, or they spent $32 million to try to stop him. But now they're saying they're willing to spend even more money to try to stop el-Sayed from winning the general election. So I'm going to go ahead and tell everybody right now, you better get ready, because what's going to happen, the money that we saw them spend against Thomas Massie, that is going to be nothing compared to what they put into this race. This is a Senate seat. That's a 6-year term. So they're going to put all these ads, and I'm going to show you some of them. They're going to put as much out there as possible to try to stop that from happening. So everyone get ready. Is another reason why we need big money out of electoral politics. Here is one of them. So he is running against Mike Rogers. Here is one of the ads that Mike Rogers is sharing. This is so disgusting. Watch this.
My whole name is Abdurrahman Muhammad
Don't want this? Vote Mike Rogers for U.S. Senate on November 3rd.
So Mike Rogers is calling him a terrorist. That's what that was. And that's just one of them. And they're going to drive that home. They're going to say he's a terrorist. They're going to say he's a communist. He's not even a socialist, which he's made very clear. Here is Mike Rogers and his wife. Listen to this.
If you're among the majority of Democratic voters that woke up on Wednesday feeling, well, hopeless, because the person who won does not represent your values, well, just know there is still hope. Michigan deserves a senator who is ready to sit with you, hear from you, and represent you. The parents across Michigan who want an education system that sets up their kids for success. You have a home with us. To grandparents across Michigan who are heartbroken from watching their kids and grandkids leave the state. You have a home with us. To young people who are looking for real solutions to solve our housing affordability crisis. You have a home with us. To working families who don't want higher taxes and lower paychecks, well, you have a home with us. And to the vast majority of people across Michigan who do not want to throw their support behind a campaign filled with anger, divisiveness, calls for violence, and the views that are out of touch with your values, well, you have a home with us.
It's interesting he said calls for violence, but he's the one that has the ads, with the violence that's in the ads.
The fight is far greater than just left versus right. The fight is for the very soul of our nation. Over the next 90 days, I'm going to work hard to earn your trust, to earn your support, and earn your vote. We have a state to save, Michigan. Let's get to work.
So I'm going to go ahead and warn everybody now that there is already an X account, a Twitter account called Democrats for Mike Rogers. I'm pretty sure that his campaign team created that. I don't believe that bullshit. I don't believe these Democrats are rushing to go vote for Mike Rogers. But I'm just telling you guys, they're already starting to spin it in such a way that, look, the Democrats are going to come out and vote for Mike Rogers. Obviously, I don't believe that to be the case, but that's the case that he's trying to make there. Now, they did hit back at Mike Rogers with this ad. I thought this one was kind of funny.
There comes a time in life when things start to slow down, when you just don't have the same energy you had 20 years ago. But there's a way to bring some excitement back.
What has not helped is the fact that the United States hasn't strongly said that military intervention is still on the table.
Introducing Endless War from Mike Rogers.
Boy, it's really hard when you have to justify every minute of the war, I think, for the president.
With Endless War, you can feel like yourself again.
I think when people think about boots on the ground, they're thinking big maneuver elements, divisions, brigades, battalions. No one's talking about that, although I don't think we should eliminate it.
Side effects may include death, economic hardship, and global instability. Some patients have reported fuel shortages, which may cause inflation. Endless War has not been proven to make Americans any safer.
Ask your doctor if Endless War is right for you.
That was funny. That was a pretty good one. But yeah, he's another neocon, another warmonger. Of course, Donald Trump does support him. Eric, we can go to part 2 there of Type VNC. And there is a humming sound with Type VNC. I don't know why. But let me show you something about this guy, okay? Let me show you something about this guy. Mike Rogers, check this out, okay? This guy was a Fed. Okay? Are you guys ready for this? Mike Rogers was a Fed. So that's actually who this guy is. Look at this. Rogers, from 1989 to 1994, he worked as a special agent with the FBI in Chicago. And we know Chicago, there's a lot of corruption going on there, especially during this time, 1989 to 1994. This guy is a Fed. He is a member of the Society of Former Special Agents of the FBI. That's who he is. A warmonger Fed. Now, he's run for office before as well in Michigan, so he has some experience running for office as well. But they're going to throw everything that they can at him. Again, they've been trying to make fun of his name, so El Sayed did respond here.
Now, Mike, I'm just going to remind you, if you don't know how to say the name, keep the name out your damn mouth. Or just call me Abdul. But I got some opinions about his name. See, it's very fitting for him, Rogers. Because that's his answer every time a corporation or Donald Trump tells him to do something. Mike, we need you to put a data center in the backyard. Roger. Mike, we need you to hike their prescription drug prices. Roger. Mike, we need you to rubber stamp this war we shouldn't be fighting. Roger. Mike, and this one's Donald Trump. I need you to lick these boots. Roger. And I think I speak for all of us here in Michigan when I say that we are done with Rogers. Go back to Florida where you belong.
So he has jokes. He has he has some jokes. It's funny. Like him and Thomas Massey, they're both kind of funny. Another attack that is coming from Kid Rock. Again, these are some of the attacks that he's getting from the right. Kid Rock, who's also another actor. This guy had been so many different things. Kid Rock at one point said he was, yo, like down, like with the black community and hippity, hippity, hop, hop, hop. And then he became like this country music. I'm actually country. His father came out against his own father, came out against him and said that his son was a poser. He said he ain't from the trailer park. He from the suburbs. I remember that. His dad told on Kid Rock. Kid Rock was like, I ain't straight out of Compton. I'm straight out the trailer. And his dad busted him live on TV and said he grew up in suburbia. He is not from the trailer park. So he done been so many different things. So listen to what he says here.
And Mackinac is one of the most beautiful places in America. And don't take my word for it. Ask the millions of people who have visited. I just recently had some friends up here at my lake home in Charlevoix, Michigan, from South Alabama, from Birmingham, Alabama, but have a lake house in Alabama. Knew nothing about Northern Michigan. So one of the first things I do is take them over to Mackinac Island. There's no cars there. You get a buggy pulled by horses. You tour the island and the old Fort Mackinac. There you see the beautiful landscape and homes overlooking Lake Michigan and the Mackinac Bridge. And then my favorite thing to do, one of my favorite things on earth, is to end up at the Grand Hotel, which is one of the largest front porches in the world, if not the largest in America, lined with American flags. And you're sitting there having a whiskey drink before you go to dinner. And it's God's country. Every little town up here in North Michigan is like a Norman Rockwell painting come to life.
And so this was shared, of course, by Mike Rogers. He said, Mackinac is God's country. Abdul hates it, though. I guess he prefers his luxury property in Dubai instead. And so El Sayed clapped back here and he said, both of these multimillionaires can afford a weekend in Mackinac Island. How about you and your family? So that was a pretty good comeback. The fact that this is not a place that just anybody can go to hang out at or to visit. Now, Donald Trump is also, of course, attacking him and his wife. Let's go ahead and get into this one here.
Speaking of President Trump, last night he posted on social media a photograph of him and First Lady Melania Trump in formal attire. Next to a photograph of you and your wife, you appear to be in a restaurant booth or something. Your wife is a psychiatrist. She's wearing a hijab. The caption was two very different Americas. What was your response when you saw that?
Yeah, he's right. One in which your overlords are two people who don't like each other but joint in the interest of making billions of dollars off of you, or two people who genuinely love each other, enjoyed some pancakes together, want to come together to build the kind of America where they can raise a family and know that that family is going to have the good things. So yes, you got two different visions of America. Donald Trump's vision is the one you're living in right now. Can you afford your gas? Can you afford your groceries? Do you believe when you look your kids in the eye that they're going to have a better future than you did? And Sarah and I are running because when we look our daughters in the eye, Emily and Sirine, we want them to believe that they're every bit as able to have a better future than the one that they could have had under the Trump administration, that they can live together with their sisters and their brothers in America in a way where they lock arms to build the good things that they deserve together, where they know they'll have the health care that they need and good jobs, and that they don't have to go 15 minutes and know that there are kids who live 15 minutes away whose lives are very, very different than theirs because we've been for far too long okay with a level of inequality in this country. I want them to live in an America where they can breathe clean air and drink clean water. And actually, Sarah and I like each other. I don't know about the First Lady and the President, but from what I've heard, it's a bit of a rocky road.
Speaking of President Trump,
I think that's a good thing to do there, which is to kick it back to the issues that matter. Like when people come with those personal attacks against you or, you know, your wife, to bring it back to the issues that matter, because that really is a diversion tactic. They're just trying to get people to focus on other things so that they're not focusing on the economy. And of course, all of these wars. So bringing it back to those issues is very important. And then also, I guess Donald Trump told him that he was full of shit. And I want you to see the response here.
Abdul, Donald Trump seems to think you're a gift to the Republican Party. What do you say to that?
I'm a gift to the state of Michigan, God willing, and hope to win this election.
And he says, if you pardon the language, you're full of shit. What do you say to that?
At least I don't let mine go in the middle of the Oval Office.
Abdul.
Oh, so people heard this and I thought to myself, you know, did this happen? Did Donald Trump, like, you know, take number 2 in the Oval Office? Is it true that he's actually wearing a diaper? I've heard those rumors before, but that was kind of funny. Like, that was a good comeback there. So again, like, he's actually pretty good at this, which is also kind of scary as well. He goes on to say a couple more things at the event that he had this past weekend. I want you guys to hear.
We fight for the families barely able to put their groceries in the cart and check out. We fight for the mom who's worried about the child care she needs to be able to work a job that barely pays enough. We fight for the folks who are afraid about what happens if they get sick. We fight for each other. We fight for the...
So that's one of them there. Again, just honing in on those economic issues, which I think is incredibly important, given the economy right now. Another thing that he touched on was corruption, political corruption.
You should not be able to spend tens of millions of dollars selecting a candidate or picking a politician using corporate funds. That should be illegal in the United States. And when I get to the U.S. Senate, I'm going to work with my colleagues, folks like Liz Warren, folks like Bernie Sanders, folks like Alyssa Slotkin, to end the corporate corruption of our politics, end the system of super PACs, end the system of 501c4s, and all of it. And we're going to put money in pockets. We're going to stand with our union sisters and brothers and pass the PRO Act. We're going to tax billionaires their wealth. Because you know what? You tax a billionaire at 8%, you know what they still are? Still a billionaire. Kids are going to be rich. You're going to be okay. maybe you could pay your fair share so our kids get good schools and functional infrastructure and some health care.
Yeah, I heard about that, Anna, that he supports reparations. I heard about that. Listen, here's my thing on this one, because I want to bring up this other one as well. Apparently, Barack Obama has already reached out to him. I guess to, so look for an endorsement probably to come from Obama at some point soon. So I think it's a number of things that are happening here. I think he is excited for that endorsement and accepted that endorsement because the reality is, in order for him to win, he is going to have to get those voters that voted for Haley Stevens instead of him in order to beat Mike Rogers. That being said, though, if it were me, I would have said to Kamala, you got to apologize to the people. You got to apologize to the people, and that needs to happen. You need to come sit down with the people in the community in Dearborn, and you need to issue an apology to the people. A lot of people are very hurt. People have lost, like I know Rashida Tlaib has talked about this. People have lost family members. Justin Amash, who's a former Congress member, said he's lost several family members. Like, you cannot expect the people to just forget about what was said. You cannot expect the people to forget that you said you wouldn't do anything different than Joe Biden, and that you wouldn't withhold the arms, and that you shunned Palestinians who wanted to speak at the convention. You can't expect people to forget that. And I don't know what Kamala plans on doing, I guess, strategy-wise from here. But I hope she realizes that we have not forgotten. Hell, it was just like yesterday, It's not like this was 10 years ago. That was just like yesterday. But things are already starting to change, because I noticed this. This account here said, as a former MAGA guy, I can confirm this is real. I voted for Trump in 2020 and 2024. I just voted for Syed in the primary the other day. I am one of the non-college Gen Z voters. So I did want you guys to see that, that some people are saying that they flipped. And when he was asked why, he said conflict in the Middle East, AIPAC, people like Massey, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tucker Carlson, Alex Jones were basically kicked out of the Republican Party. Joe Kent, Owen Schroyer, and I left voluntarily. There are other things, but these are the easiest to explain. So there is some change that is happening there, ladies and gents. Again, like I said, the economy and the wars, these things that Donald Trump ran on, some people are really just not too happy with. But that person there said that they actually voted for El Sayed in the primary. So that's really interesting. So again, I think, like I said, right now, people on the left and people on the right are mad at him. And I think, it's interesting, like, what happens if he does get that support from older Black voters that went to Haley Stevens, but then in turn, because of the endorsement, and he's saying he appreciates this from Kamala Harris, he ends up losing some of that support from the Arab American community in Dearborn. Not to say that will happen, I don't know, but that would be interesting to see if that happened, But yeah. Stay tuned, guys. This is going to be that Michigan general election race for that Senate seat. There's going to be a lot of money poured into that race, so pay attention. All right, let's go to some of the comments here, and then we'll get to the next story. Eric, we can go to part 3 for Type VNC. Thank you. Thank you, Mockery. Have you covered Brandon Tatum, Nolan Wells, Jubilee? You know what? I talked about Brandon Tatum once on this show. And it just like that is someone who irks my brain, because Brandon Tatum, he's paid to do what he's doing. He's a complete buffoon. So at some point, like with some people, I just can't. I can't continue to talk about them sometimes, because I feel like I'm giving them that unneeded attention. But he's a fucking clown. Thank you, Louise. No offense to you, Mockery, but he's just a clown. Thank you, Louise. I think the Tucker anti-war party and the DSA winners are all an op to rebrand the parties and do business as usual. Interesting. That's interesting. I mean, DSA has been around for quite a while, but I hear you. Thank you, the Flower Bro, who's been a member for 5 months. There's a few gay bars in San Francisco boycotted for the past year for using facial recognition surveillance. The bars have stopped using them. Boycotts work. There you go. Thanks, Jin Jin. Skamala is a cosplayer that fools black folks crook. And thank you for this one. Zio Skamala is a cosplayer. We don't want her sorries. Thank you, Terry. That's why I didn't vote for her. Yeah. Thank you, Jen. We have to wake up black communities being played. We're working on it, Jen. And thank you for this one. He's lying, paper lips. Wake up our families. Big Rich said he's rich. His father owns one of the largest Ford dealerships in Southeast Michigan. He's talking about Kid Rock. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Libertarian Social Democrat. I am a Muslim and I don't support El Sayed. Dems bad. Interesting. I have not seen an independent or Green Party person coming forward in that race. We're going to the next one. Okay. All right, ladies and gents, let's go to the next story. People are pissed about this. People are pissed. It appears that Defund the Police is back in the press again. And it has been very clear to me that DSA, which used to support that, it appears that many of those politicians have decided to move away from that. And they're saying so publicly. And Breonna Joy Gray is pushing back on this very heavily. I want you guys to see what is being said here when we talk about the people are pissed. This is from Caitlin Kylan. She was interviewing Ilhan Omar about what Bernie Sanders said about defund the police. Listen to this.
I want you to listen to what he told Pod Save America.
No serious person that I know who is running for office believes in quote unquote defunding the police. Do we need police reform? Do we need to get rid of racism within police departments? Absolutely. Are there jobs that other people can be doing in terms of mental health, drug addiction that now falls on a cop's shoulders? Yeah, I think we should look at that. But nobody I know, believes in defunding the police.
So Bernie Sanders is saying no one he knows that's seriously, running believes in defund the police. This was something that came about apparently, during 2020, during the George Floyd protests, which DSA and many others got behind, like that movement. And as time went by, people started to distance themselves from it. And part of it is because some people suffered political, consequences because of being attached to that. And then others, realized it wasn't as popular. It wasn't a popular issue. So they wanted to move away from it. So I want you to hear what Ilhan Omar said in response to that. Again, she's from Minnesota. And this is where a lot of, the George Floyd, all that stuff happened was in Minnesota. Listen to what she says.
Do you think that's true? Because there are some candidates that are running right now that have previously called for defunding the police.
I mean, in the Democratic Party and in Congress, we oftentimes talk about people voting their district. Obviously, there are some parts of the United States back in 2020 that had some reckoning to do in regards to what it looked like to have a public safety that centered actually safer communities. For us in Minneapolis, with the murder of George Floyd, we had to have a deeper conversation about what really it looked like for us to address public safety here. We had a police department that was essentially problematic. And when that conversation becomes nationalized, then you sort of get the kind of messaging that gets sort of lost in the void. Minneapolis has come a long way. We still have a long way to go. And I think that is sort of what Bernie was speaking to. People essentially do want safer communities. People want the issues that exist with certain police departments, like the Minneapolis Police Department, to be addressed. And people want to have trust in those that seek to serve and protect them.
But do you think it's accurate that as he put it, he said, no serious person I know who's running for office believes in quote unquote defunding the police? Do you think that's true?
I mean, when he says that, I think he's talking about someone putting forth a piece of legislation. And to that regard, I would say that he is right. I haven't seen any pieces of legislation or ordinances come through in the United States since 2020.
So pay attention to the word that she used there, protect. Nancy Pelosi is going to use that word as well, because that leads me to what the Supreme Court actually said about police, which I've talked about it on the show before, but it's been a couple years since I took this dive into what police have a duty to do. So we'll get to that. But what this tells you when she says that people haven't put that type of legislation forward since 2020 is that they've abandoned it. They've decided, it's not popular. Not enough people like it. It scares some of the older voters, and that caused people like races. I remember that Cori Bush was still, saying defund the police, and Nancy Pelosi said on TV, with respect to Ms. Bush, the Democratic Party is not moving in that direction. And then we see what happened with Cori Bush, right? They got her out of there. And then she ran again just recently, and it was a blowout. She lost dramatically. And so what they found is that it's not popular, so they no longer support it. And what I worry about is, and people have different opinions about this. I debated Garland Nixon on the show about this. Nick Cruz came on to debate Garland Nixon on the show about it too. It's so funny. But like both of us, there's a number of people that I absolutely like and love who do not agree with defunding the police because they feel as though they have the right to be protected. But hold on to that word protected, right? But ultimately what this means to me is that if something is not popular, they will walk away from it. Hold on to that. I want to take you back to this moment as well. Katie Willett said, I feel like DSA forgot that the impetus for the defund movement is that police keep killing Black people. That's still happening. That didn't stop. So this is what Kate said here. But again, we also have to remember who was president during that time. That was under Donald Trump's administration. So you see, I noticed something. When Biden became president, I noticed all of a sudden people stopped talking about the police brutality incidents that were happening because Biden was president. I still covered them on this show. My comrade JB covered them as well. But it was interesting to me that now all of a sudden that a Democrat was in the White House, people felt as though those issues weren't important anymore. I mean, how many times do you guys see some of the left media podcasters actually cover these stories about, these people that are unalived by the cops with their hands in the air? How often do you hear them discuss that anymore? How often? But during 2020, especially during lockdowns, during that era, everybody was talking about, George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and et cetera. But the moment that Biden got in the White House, I noticed they stopped talking about it. And so what that says to me is that maybe they never really cared to begin with. Because you can't, on principle, either you care or you don't care. It shouldn't be, I worry about it and I'm concerned about it because the Republicans are in power, but all of a sudden when the Democrats are in power, you're not worried or concerned about it anymore. And that brings me to this here. AOC was just questioned about defund the police too. See, they're all walking away from it. Listen to this.
What's important is that we have to assess what
was it. I mean, did the movement go too far with some of those positions? I mean, you briefly supported the idea of defunding the police.
Well, I think that during this time and especially during COVID, there was a huge opening of the Overton window. We were shut down. There was some of the highest unemployment rates that we have seen because of those shutdowns. Yeah. And I think that the doors were really open in trying to entertain any and every policy that was going to get us to a better place. And I actually think that the discussions that were had in that time were quite fruitful. I think that when we talk about crime today, it's fundamentally different than the way that we talked about crime in bringing crime down, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that we all share in the goals of having as low a crime rate as possible. I think that, during lockdown, of course, rhetoric in that time is not rhetoric that we would use today. And I'm grateful that these candidates have the opportunity to present who they are.
So see how now they would not use it now. And people are still being unalived by the police. So to me, it's just now all of a sudden it's not important because, it's just they realized it wasn't a popular phrase. It wasn't a popular slogan when they did the polling. Bree has come out pretty heavily about this. I want to show you some of the things that she's saying because she's noticing this shift too. This is what she said to Ilhan Omar. There's no need to race to the bottom just because Bernie stooped down there. What you say is this: Bernie doesn't seem to realize that what he described, funding programs that are proven to improve public safety and defunding those that don't, is exactly what defunding of the police is about. I don't know many Americans who aren't in favor of that approach. So what Bree was saying here, and again, I do think some people get this wrong. Skylar has it on point. Defund the police meant to cut some of the more bloated police budgets to move that to other areas like mental health, emergency teams and services, youth services, and violence prevention. Exactly. That's what that meant. But what happened is the press got a hold of it and they took it and made it their own thing and said, they don't want cops at all. They want them all gone and da-da-da. And some people don't. Some people want, to abolish all police, etc. But the defund movement, this is what this really was about, that you were supposed to take that money and allocate it into these other programs that ultimately was going to reduce crime anyway. And another thing that I point out oftentimes on this show, which is that if you look at the places that have less poverty, they tend to have less crime. A lot of crime is poverty driven. This is why you don't see, that's why when you look at countries like Norway and, Denmark and all that stuff, it's not to say they don't have crime, but they don't have the type of crime that we have because, again, a lot of their needs are met. When everybody has health care, everybody gets the opportunity to have a decent education, when people aren't starving and stuff like that, when everybody in Finland, if you're the happiest people in the world because people are guaranteed housing, when your needs are met like that, you're not going to have high crime. So if you look at the data, it matches that, right? So less poverty, less crime. So that I think is very important. Now, she went on to say here, she said, again, this issue is a gotcha precisely because of the rank cowardice of the left, which started in 2020 when much of the establishment left accepted the Faustian bargain of abandoning their ideals to get Biden elected. They could have spent the last 6 years explaining defund and building on the gains of the George Floyd movement. Instead, they got a one-term genocidal president and Trump too. And this is what she's highlighting here, that 58% of Americans say policing needs major changes. 6% say none are needed. Almost all support increased focus on accountability and community relations. About half support reducing police funding with large gaps by race, political party. So that's what she's referencing there, is that when you ask most people say there should be, some major changes. And that can't just be around body cameras. She's even pointing to here where Thomas Massie seems to be ahead on this issue somewhat when you compare him to where some of the people on the left are. She said Massie taking a stronger defund position than half of the DSA left. And she's referring to what he said here. I'll be introducing a bill to withhold all federal funding for cameras used to track American citizens. And so now I'm sure if I asked Thomas Massie, well, do you support defunding the police? He would probably say no, or actually, I don't know, because he's not for spending a lot of money. So I noticed that about him. But this is where you see what I mean? The left was at one point leading this issue, and now they've gotten away from it. And that brings me to this part right here. When Nancy Pelosi was questioned, about this defund years ago, I want you to hear what she said about that.
The phrase defund the police, what does that mean to you?
Well, what it means is let us, the resources that we have, let us spend it in a way that gives the most protection to the American people, protection for their safety, protection for their rights. The funding of police is a local matter, as you know. From the standpoint of our legislation, we're not going to that place. What we're doing is talking about how we change policy to make our policing more just and that. There's some issues that we ask police to do, like mental health issues or policing in schools and all the rest, that perhaps we can shuffle some of that money around. But those are local decisions. We take an oath to protect and defend the American people. Their safety is our top priority. And so, again, respectful of those in law enforcement who take pride in their work, disrespectful of those who do not. We want to work together as to how we go forward.
So she used that word protection again. So I just want to show you, because I keep hearing this, and I just want to show you what the Supreme Court actually said about the police and your protection, okay? Do the police have an obligation to protect you? So again, this just goes back to a SCOTUS case here. And let me dive in here. The question of police duty. The motto, to protect and serve, first coined by the LA Police Department in the 50s, has widely, been copied by police departments everywhere. But what exactly is a police officer's legal obligation to protect the people? Must they risk their lives in dangerous situations like the one in Uvalde? So remember what happened in Uvalde, Texas at the school. The answer is no. In the 1981 case, Warren versus the District of Columbia, the DC Court of Appeals held that the police have a general public duty, but that no specific legal duty exists unless there is a special relationship between an officer and an individual, such as a person in custody. The Supreme Court also ruled that police have no specific obligation to protect. It is in its 1989 decision, DeShaney versus Winnebago County Department of Social Services, that the justices ruled that a social services department had no duty to protect a young boy from his abusive father. In 2005, Castle Rock versus Gonzalez, a woman sued the police for failing to protect her and her husband after he violated a restraining order, protect her from her husband, after he violated a restraining order and abducted and killed 3 of their children. Justices said the police had no such duty. More recently, the U.S. Court of Appeals in the 11th Circuit upheld a lower court ruling that police could not be held liable for failing to protect the students in the 2018 shooting that claimed 17 lives in Parkland, Florida. So when you get a moment, I've looked at all of these cases. When you get a moment, look up Castle Rock versus Gonzalez, DeShaney versus Winnebago County, and Warren versus District of Columbia. According to the Supreme Court, the police have no obligation to protect you. In fact, their obligation is to protect themselves first. Write this down. A lot of people don't realize this. So when you hear Nancy Pelosi and AOC and Ilhan, all them say that people have a right, to be protected, that is a farce. They are not obligated to protect you. Pay attention to the stories. How many times you hear about them being rescued? Like someone, oh my God, the police protected me. They saved me. Notice you don't hear those stories that often. And this is also part of the reason why people like Breonna Joy Gray are pissed because of this reason. So she went on to say here on Piers Morgan's show, that she supports defund. And so listen to this.
It means
Brianna, would you abolish those institutions?
Means get rid of entirely. That is a clear answer to your question. Defund means decrease funding for.
Would you?
Abolish means abolish entirely. Period.
I'm asking you if you would abolish them. Would you abolish them?
Why do you care what I personally, Breonna Joy Gray, I know why you care.
Because you're a guest on my show.
No, because you want to make this a conversation about whatever. I am to the left, way to the left.
I just want to know what you think. Why is this so difficult? This is excruciating.
This is not a referendum on me. This is a referendum on the actual DSA and the candidates that you are frustrated are winning races because they're overwhelmingly popular. I'm not running for office.
Brianna, you were invited as a guest onto a panel to debate the future of the Democratic Party in light of the rise of the Democratic
So let's
Socialists.
debate that.
So
and not
I'm
my
asking you.
beliefs.
Wait a
We want
minute,
to talk about
Brianna.
the Democratic Party
So
and
I'm
the
asking
DSA
you.
and the candidates that are running under those
Given that
banners.
the Democratic, given that I'm going to keep talking over you if you keep talking. Given that the Democratic Socialist candidates espouse a philosophy where they want to abolish all these institutions, I'm just asking you, Brianna, whether you personally would like to abolish the Pentagon, the police, and prisons. Yes or no?
I, Brianna, think it's Brianna with a ah sound. Think it's absolutely unconscionable that you can say a kind of mealy mouth, yeah, I think it was really bad that ICE murdered American citizens in the street, but want to make this a referendum of whether one socialist happens to believe in abolishing those programs. To me, the answer is yes. The absolute long-term goal. I just answered the question.
Yes or no?
1 second. The long-term.
Yes
to
or
me,
no?
The answer is affirmatively yes.
Yes or no, Brianna?
Personally, absolutely. Me, Brianna Joy Gray, since the world is clamoring for my one woman's opinion, absolutely do believe in abolish the police, abolish the Senate, abolish the Pentagon. I do not think the American war machine, which has caused unfathomable horrors across the globe for the entirety of all of our living memory, should persist.
Got it.
I think absolutely the Pentagon is a force for evil in the world.
Pierce.
I think the police.
We got it. We got it. We got you on the record.
That's a wrap. That's a wrap.
We got it. We got it. Brianna.
Brianna.
It's a wrap. It's a wrap. It's a wrap, Brianna.
You guys get the gist here. You know how these shows on Piers Morgan, how this can be. But the reality is she is sticking by that decision and she still supports it. When right now, the reason why she's hammering about this is because at one point the DSA did support that. And now all of a sudden people, not all of them, but some of them are abandoning that issue. And so again, because now it shows that it's not a popular position to have. And so here's the question that I have, ladies and gents. The civil rights movement at that point in time was not popular. The women's rights movement at that point in time was not popular. In fact, my grandparents made it very clear to me that during the civil rights movement, contrary to what some people may believe, all Black Americans didn't support what Martin Luther King and civil rights activists were trying to do. Some Black Americans did not support the civil rights movement and did not want the integration. So the question that I have is, if you're only going to support something when it's popular, where does that leave your morality? One of the things that's on the DSA platform has been there for years is to obviously not support Israel. That's been on the platform for years. At that time, that was not the popular position. It's popular now. But at that time, it wasn't. And so, I question these things and I really do wonder, because my whole thing is, if this is how you are going to move, well, then what happens if it's another issue that people care greatly about and it's no longer popular? What are you going to do? You're going to abandon that too? That's why these folks are pissed. And if anything, that's capitulating to the dim establishment too. So it's something to think about, guys. It's unfortunate. And, I look back on it and I'm like, yeah, there was that movement at that point in time, but it's crazy that the response to it seemed to be kneel in kente cloth and get Biden in office and everything's going to be, fine. So yeah, man, these are things we got to pay attention to. And I think Bree is right. She has a point. People need to pay attention. All right. If you haven't had a chance to do so, do me a solid and smash that like button. Thank you. And like, sub, and share, just like a Care Bear. Quick announcement. We'll get to the next story. I want to give you an update on that Seattle race with Shama Sawant because I want to prove a point. If you look at the polls, the votes now, Shama Sawant is now at 16.9%. When I covered this last week, when they called it early, she had like 8,000-ish votes. She was only 6,000 votes away from second place now. I want everybody to see this. Shama Sawant, who ran as an independent, 16.9%. She got over 22,000 votes. The Republican who got that second place spot, who didn't really run a campaign, as she said, has 28,000 votes. Melissa Chaudhry, who ran as a Democrat, got less votes than Shama Sawant did. So it's important to me to show you these updates, because for whatever reason, I don't know why it takes Seattle so long to count votes. I do not know. They're still counting. The primary was last week. They are now at 91.1% votes that are in. They're still not finished. I just checked it again today. So my whole thing is this. This could have easily been different. And I wonder if she would have received that endorsement from DSA, would it have been different? Would she have gotten that second place? I don't know. But I do know that was very close. And right now there are people online who are laughing at her and shitting on her and saying she lost to a Republican. But those same people aren't calling out Melissa Chaudhry, who was basically backed by the establishment, by the way. They're not calling out Melissa Chaudhry, who is the Democrat who also lost to the Republican. So it's very clear what's happening here, folks. Like, you have more people online that are happy that Shama Sawant lost so that they can brag about it, and that Adam Smith is going on to the general election and he's going to win against the Republican, the guy who co-wrote the NDA. People are actually more happy about that so that they can say that they were right. That's where we're at now. And that's sad. And so when people talk about building coalitions and getting people in that actually fight and have actually accomplished things and won things, who are you talking about? Because Shama Sawant has won multiple things for the city of Seattle. And honestly, I look at Melissa Chaudhry, like I said, she was backed by Democrat establishment. She stayed in that race to take votes away from Shama Sawant. And what was explained to me by people who live in Washington State was that, of course, some people are just going to vote along party lines. So they see Democrat, but it's not Adam Smith, so they vote for Melissa. So this it's sad, because how close she came, that's sad. It's sad that people are applauding that. They're happy that Adam Smith is continuing on. And these are people that say they're leftists, by the way. DSA members who are cheering and applauding this on. I don't think a lot of these people care about the Palestinian people. I think people just care about their clubs. And just to show you something else to prove a point, Shama Sawant did roughly about the same as Sakat Chakrabarti, who ran as a Democrat against Scott Wiener and Connie Chung. He got 17.9%. This is the guy who used to work, with AOC. He got 17.9% as a Democrat. Shama Sawant got 16.9%. And it may be more than that. They're still not done counting. Why aren't they laughing at Chakrabarti the same way they're laughing at Shama Sawant? This is where we're at now, folks. It's really sad. It's really, really sad. And it's cult-like, which I don't agree with. Now do you see why I'm a registered independent? Now do you see why I don't join political organizations? This is why. I think she should run again, in my opinion. You guys can let me know what you think, but I think she should run again. But I will say, next time around, if there was something to do differently, if I was Shama, like for the example, the Breaking Points interview, there was too much focus on DSA and Zoran and AOC, people that she was not running against. When people come to you like that, and when they start bringing up these other people, you got to bring it back to your campaign. So always bring the conversation back to your campaign and the person that you're running against, because that interview went from I'm running this campaign to this person doesn't like DSA and Zoran and all this kind of stuff. That's my whole thing. And then I think that needs to be the primary focus. I saw, when Shama came on the show, I made it very clear to focus on her campaign. And I saw like other interviews, and I just felt like some people were focusing on people she wasn't even running against. And like, you can have your criticisms towards these people, but at the end of the day, you are running a campaign. And so that is one thing I would say to Shama: keep it focused on the campaign, not all these other people and all this other stuff that's happening in these other groups. That's what I would say. But it's sad. I think that's shameful. Things could have been very different. And I just wanted you to see how close she came. Let's go to the next part here. Eric, I'll come back to the other announcement. I want to make sure I get the Byron Donald story in before Larry comes on. Okay. All right. These folks are pissed, especially James Fishback. James Fishback, who is running against Byron Donalds in Florida for the gubernatorial race, held a press conference where he says that allegedly Byron Donalds is being investigated for sex trafficking. I kid you not. Let's go ahead and bring it in, ladies and gents. Like, this is not even, he's not even joking. So let's get into it.
On July 21st, 2026, NBC News reported that Republican Florida Congressman Corey Mills was under criminal investigation by the Department of Justice. Like virtually every federal investigation, this one began with a single suspect and quickly spread to include others. This government whistleblower who approached my campaign has confirmed that this investigation has now expanded to include U.S. Congressman Byron Donalds, who, along with Corey Mills, is under investigation for federal sex trafficking.
So, did everybody hear that? According to James, he says that Byron Donalds, along with Corey Mills, is under investigation for sex trafficking. Again, both of them right now, Byron Donalds and James Fishback, are running for governor of Florida. And Byron Donalds is already behind where he needs to be in order to beat the Democrat in that race. I'll show you those numbers in just a second, but let's continue on.
Federal prosecutors are investigating two dates in question: May 17th, 2024, and November 19th, 2024. Dates when Congressman Mills and Donalds are said to have traveled to the MGM National Harbor, a luxury hotel resort in Oxon Hill, Maryland, where prosecutors believe that both Mills and Donalds solicited, procured, and paid women for sexual acts. Federal prosecutors are in the final stages of this investigation and will soon charge both men under Title 18 of the U.S. Code, Section 1952, a felony that carries a conviction of 5 years in prison.
This is wild, guys. Like, I'm not kidding. No, he's not a robot. That's how he talks. I've seen him in other interviews. That's just how he talks. But this is wild. The DOJ is pushing back on this, but this is crazy, guys.
In the coming hours, Byron Donalds will call this investigation a political attack. It's not. The Department of Justice, led by a Trump appointee of the same political party, is not investigating Congressman Donalds for political reasons. They are investigating him because there is credible evidence that he committed a very serious crime. My campaign from the beginning has not been about running against Congressman Donalds. It has been about running for the people of my state. My campaign did not seek out this information. My campaign was approached by a whistleblower who provided details that only someone with direct knowledge of a federal investigation could know. In fact, this whistleblower...
Just to show you guys, this video is on, it's on his channel. It's on James Fishback's channel. And I'll show you the DOJ's response to this. So just FYI.
Informed us that Corey Mills was under federal investigation before it was even reported by the media. NBC News reported this on July 21st, and a letter provided by a whistleblower dated July 20th to the Department of Justice made reference to this criminal investigation regarding Mills and Donalds. Furthermore, my legal team has spent weeks attempting to independently verify this investigation, and we have done just that. Text messages sent from Corey Mills to himself to a third party confirm that he and Congressman Donalds were in fact both at the MGM Harbor on both of the dates that are now the focus of federal prosecutors. These are the text messages in question sent by Congressman Mills to a third party. On the date in question, the most recent of which by federal prosecutors is November 19th, 2024, quote, I went to MGM with Byron, and then May 14th, 2024, me and Byron.
So I just want to show you guys this again. We'll come back to this. The DOJ is saying that this is false. They're saying falsely accusing someone of being under investigation is a dangerous form of weaponization. This claim is not true. Congressman Byron Donalds is not under investigation. But James Fishback is not reversing this. Like, he's not saying it's not the case. I'll show you more information as well. Now, Byron Donalds is ahead to win the Republican gubernatorial primary. But when I show you the numbers for the general election, it's much different. So just keep that in mind. Now, he says it's not political. It's political. He says it's not, but it is. A little bit more here.
Before I came here today, I tried every possible avenue to clear, exonerate Congressman Donalds of the fact that he might not be subject to this investigation, including reviewing a letter that was sent on July 20th to the Department of Justice asking them to confirm whether any component of the department is currently investigating or has investigated Byron Donalds, and they refused to comment. For reference, the Department of Justice just put out a letter clearing Florida Republican Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna of being under criminal investigation. And despite our attempt to get a letter like this about Congressman Donald's federal investigation, we were unable to do so.
So I just want to let you guys know yet again that Donald Trump did endorse Byron Donalds. So yeah, this is political for James. Again, people had questioned about this video. Again, this video is on his channel. And when you see the response here, I'll show you as well. Let me show you that link response. Because they're saying that the DOJ said that they're not investigating him. And I'll show you what the response has been here. James Fishback's Byron Donalds allegation is false, according to the DOJ. And Byron Donalds, of course, is saying that this is false information. Now, the Department of Justice spokesperson confirmed to Newsweek that Republican Byron Donalds is not under investigation. Goes on to say that a law enforcement official confirms that's false. Fishback made the allegations in a lengthy post on X as the Republican primary race continues. Donald remains the leading candidate in the contest. So again, like I said, he continues to say it's not political, but it is political. With Fishback attempting to gain ground against the Trump-backed congressman. It goes here to say Fishback claims about Byron Donalds, what to know. And this is what you saw there in that video where he's saying that he was allegedly a part of a sex trafficking ring. Now, here's the problem. Let me show you this part here. We'll pull up this post on X. So again, this is real, guys. If you go to James Fishback's account on X, this is his post. So he did say this. And as you scroll down here, this is basically all the things that was said in the video. And then he also has those documents here that he was holding up, I guess, in the video, where he was saying that, like, they, observed. Look at the message, Byron and messages. Corey Mills, I went to MGM with Byron. Not yet. I'm in Byron's office. Just Byron and I hit MGM, me and Byron. Now, again, this is a screenshot, so we don't know for sure if this came directly from Corey Mills' phone. People can make anything look like, it's a real message nowadays. But this is the information that James Fishback is sharing. I know you guys laughing about his name. And then here's that letter from the Department of Justice that he was sharing as well about Anna Paulina. So they have already accused her. And so I don't know. Byron Donalds is saying it's not true. James Fishback is saying that it is true. But ultimately, for him to say it's not political is a lie. It is political. Now, here's the problem. Byron Donalds has been known to be an actor. Byron Donalds has taken on different roles at different times to be whoever he felt he needed to be to get to where he needed to get to at that point in time. Byron Donalds' ex-wife came forward. Now, this was a whiles ago, but I remember talking about this. His ex-wife came forward telling people that he is super dangerous, and she said that he is not who he says he is. And so we can get into some of this as well. This is why I was saying his past doesn't help, because he has been known to pretend to be something that he's not. So when Bisa or Bisa Hall met fellow Florida A&M University freshman Byron Donalds on campus in 1996. She believed the future congressman and Donald Trump vice presidential shortlister was from another country. Listen to this. It's one of the little scams that he ran. He told me he was from Jamaica and he had a Jamaican accent and he was cute. Then the next time I saw him, the Jamaican accent was gone and he said he was from New York. She said that Donalds, who was 18 at the time, explained why he initially deceived her. He felt like it would make him stand out. And he was right. There were a ton of guys from New York around, but there weren't any of the guys from Jamaica. He was right, and it got him noticed. So we're talking about someone that can... We're talking about someone that was playing the role of a Jamaican. He was pretending to be Jamaican, even with the Jamaican accent. So again, an actor. The chameleon-like role got her attention. Hall wound up marrying him, and that first encounter had a special resonance as she watches her ex-husband's political career go places that seem unfathomable during those early days. She went on to say he's an opportunistic person, like he will take whatever opportunity they're given. He was always driven to get what he didn't have. He was trying to fill a void and got what he didn't have. Did you see what I'm saying here? She said he's an opportunistic person and will take whatever opportunity he is given. What does that tell you about Byron Donalds? Byron Donalds knows how to play a role. The 45-year-old Donalds has stood out his entire political career. He was one of the few Black Tea Party Republicans. Here's another thing here about the right wing and Byron now all of a sudden. We never talked once about how we were going to go and vote. It wasn't a thing. To see him now out there saying I'm a conservative Black man, and I'm like, since when? He wasn't talking about politics at all. To see him now, it's like, when did this happen? Upon first being contacted by the Trident last year when she made the brunt of her statements, Hall reluctantly agreed to speak on the record in part because she said she strongly objects to Donald's service to Trump, a politician whom she's disliked since well before January 6th. I have big reactions to that man. I don't think he's a good human. It's not even political. I just think he's a bad person. The congressman who represents parts of Southwest Florida, is considered a front runner in the gubernatorial race. So this was before he announced that he was going to run for governor in Florida. It goes on to say, they talk about that event that he had with Black people in Florida, where he was basically saying that Black people have always been conservative minded and that type of thing. But the point is, ladies and gentlemen, is that Byron Donalds is an actor. That's the point. That's what you need to take away from this. So and James Fishback probably knew this. And so when James Fishback says, oh, well, he allegedly, was a part of a sex trafficking ring or whatever. I mean, it's like, I don't know. I don't know. Like, you got to provide some proof there. You can't just be like, this person did this without the proof. But Byron Donalds is whoever, what did she say? Whoever you want him to be for the right opportunity. Mr. Jamaican, but not Jamaican no more. Hey, man. Why don't you go to the back, man? The poll shows something something damaging for Byron Donalds, though. A new Florida governor poll shows Democrat David Jolly leading Republican Byron Donalds. So while he's leading in the Republican primary, when you actually put him against David Jolly, Byron Donalds is not in the lead. 46% to 40%. So the Democrat candidate is ahead of Byron Donalds, and you got 14 undecided. Then this person here brought up a really good point. Long way to go, but those are extremely bad numbers for Byron Donalds. Republicans sitting at home, and now the Paul Renner campaign is energized. So they're referring to these numbers here. So far, 2026 primary election as of August 6th, it showed that Byron Donalds, or over in here, or at least, let me put it up here. There we go. Republican, 259,000-ish, and Democrats, 290,000-ish. So what they're saying is Byron Donalds is not where he needs to be. He's behind. And probably I would say behind where Ron DeSantis was when he ran. So there you go. I don't know. Again, it's you guys are too funny in the chat, man. I'm trying not to look at it. You can just stop. Oh man. The thing is this. I don't even think a lot of people would even, question this, except for the fact that Byron Donalds pretends to be someone that he's not. And so now, of course, these folks are pissed because James Fishback said that. Again, you need to show more proof than just this. I got this text message or whatever from Corey Mills back in the day. But I don't know, it makes people question it because he pretends to be different people. So we'll have to wait and see what happens here with this one, ladies and gents. But oh boy, oh gosh, that one's interesting. Okay, all right. Larry's about to come on in 3 minutes. So really quick, Eric, can we just pivot back real quick to that announcement, and then we'll come back to this one. I'll just show them the back to school thing, and then Larry will be here in a second. Thank you. Quick announcement, ladies and gents. Just a reminder, we are having our back to school donation this Saturday, August 15th. If you're in the area, hope to see you. Boston Mutual Aid Chapter is hosting the back to school donation at Torchlight Recovery in Roxbury. We'll be there at 12 p.m. We're going to donate school supplies, host games for students, and provide lunch. Please help donate if you can. We're pretty close, guys. Our goal is 2,500. We're at 2,335 thousand. So I'm going to put the link in the chat. We're almost there at our goal. If you guys can help us out, That would be great. How do I get this off of here? There we go. That would be great. Willie would appreciate that, fam. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. But yeah, looking forward to that event this Saturday. Again, that's one of our most popular events that we have is the back to school donation one. That's a big one that we do. So it is what it is. All right, let's go to some of the comments here, ladies and gents. Thank you, Brad. Wake up. Police brutality is an op. Smarten up. Thank you, Libertarian Social Democrat. Libertarians like Massey are better at defund police. Thank you, Kevin. Longtime friend with mental health issues went to sister. When despondent, she panicked and called police. If we had a system like Springfield, Oregon, 911 would have sent mental health pros instead. Yeah, and I know like some cities are trying to implement things like that to see if they can have like those mental health services. Thank you, Nat. Shama didn't run in Seattle. She ran in the 9th Congressional District in South King County, FYI. Right, the 9th Congress, which includes parts of Seattle. But yeah, I know what you mean, Nat. Thank you, Kenman. DSA think The Guardian is a great leftist paper. The Guardian does some great things, but some not great things. All right. And I think Larry is here with us. So let's go ahead and bring him in. My special guest tonight, ladies and gentlemen, you've seen him here before, is Larry Johnson. He's a former CIA analyst. Let's bring him back on. Hello.
Hey there. How are you? Happy August.
It is so hot.
Yeah. Hey, it's not bad here in Florida.
Oh my gosh. All right, Larry. Let's get into what just happened recently in the Middle East. So some things are happening here with Saudi Arabia. I want to show you guys that it was announced that Yemen's Houthis have struck the Saudi Aramco Berry gas plant in Al Jabal. This is one of the largest gas processing facilities in the country. NASA firm satellite imagery also show a massive fire burning at the site. This is the first attack on Saudi Arabia energy facilities roughly 2 weeks. Larry, can you comment? Let's start with this one because there was another attack as well. So Yemen is really going after like Saudi oil refineries here.
Yeah. Well, let me put it this way. Let's think of Saudi Arabia as these people that live in a big glass house. I mean, it's all glass. The Houthis live in a brick house, okay? And so the Saudis decided to get into a rock fight with the Houthis. So when the Houthis throw rocks, they're going to break glass. When the Saudis throw rocks, they're not breaking much glass. And that's where the situation is. The Saudis are at a decided disadvantage. They have so many targets that the Houthis can hit, not just the Houthis, but the Popular Militia Front, what they call the PMF in Iraq, which is a group of Shia militia that are connected. They're considered part of the government of Iraq. You know, the Saudis decided to kick this thing off. You know, the Houthis weren't bothering them. And I guess it's now 3 weeks ago, when the Houthi delegation to the funeral of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei were returning from that funeral in Iran, the airfield in Sana'a was attacked. So the Houthis retaliated, and so it's been a little bit of tit for tat ever since then. But as I've said, the Houthis have a lot more rocks to throw at the Saudis, and the Saudis they have a lot to lose. The Houthis, they don't have a lot to lose. It's not like you can blow up, oil and gas infrastructure, oil refineries and processing plants in Yemen, because they don't have any. But the Saudis have plenty.
Yeah, there's another one here I want to show people. Guys, this has not slowed down. This is the Jazan refinery that was also hit. I'm just going to play it. I have to keep it muted, guys, because of the music, but I just wanted you to see some of the destruction that happened here. the Houthis launch a fresh drone attack on Saudi Arabia. So it's been back and forth over the past couple of days, guys. So I wanted you to see this. Let me just fast forward here.
And that refinery, that's the most sophisticated petrochemical refinery in the world. So, they did some real damage there.
The Jazan refinery?
Yeah, Jazan, yeah.
Wow.
So it's
beyond,
it's state of the art. It's really if you're going to go out in the world and look for the best current refinery, that would be it.
Wow. So Larry, this brings into question something that just happened just a couple days ago, which is that for those who are not aware, if you haven't seen it yet, there has been like this Middle East NATO that just formed, it seemed like, where Pakistan, Turkey, and Saudi Arabia decided to form a defense pact. My question now is, because it was said basically if you attack one of them, you're attacking all of them.
Right.
My question is, so if Yemen is attacking Saudi Arabia's oil, does that mean, so is Turkey and Pakistan going to then attack Yemen?
It appears the answer to that's no. So this is a very curious arrangement. It has been kicking around now for about at least 3 months, possibly 4 months, about this creation of a new security architecture for the Persian Gulf, the West Asia, Middle East, depending, however you want to describe it. When Foreign Minister Araghchi visited Moscow at the end of April 27th, after meeting with President Putin, Putin came out and said, we need a new security architecture in the Middle East. 1 week later, Araghchi is in Beijing, and after his meeting with Foreign Minister Wang Yi comes out and says almost the exact same thing that Putin did. When the United States was meeting in Switzerland with Pakistan as the intermediate, they're meeting with the Iranian delegation to sign the MOU. And while that was going on, there was a meeting held in Cairo with the Egyptian foreign minister, the foreign ministers of Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Pakistan. And again, the discussion there was on forming this regional alliance. So when they had the signing ceremony, I guess it was on Friday, that took place in Mecca. Now, there was tremendous symbolism in that, choosing that location. Because, normally if you can go sign an agreement between governments, you do it in Riyadh, the capital. But so the Saudis should have hosted the Turks and the Pakistanis in Riyadh. They didn't. They went to Mecca. So in doing it in Mecca, they were sending a message that this is a Muslim alliance. The odds that that alliance is going to be used to attack other Muslims, I think, is remote. And I say that for two reasons. One, the Saudis had already signed a mutual defense accord with Pakistan last September. And since then, there have been plenty of Houthi attacks on Saudi Arabia. And what did Pakistan do? Nothing. They didn't even issue a word of condemnation. So then, since the signing of that pact, there have been these renewed attacks in Saudi Arabia. And again, the word from both Turkey and Pakistan is silence. So I'm still inclined, while I'm skeptical of what everybody's intention is in this, I think at least we've had enough incidents that should have, if this was a comprehensive, anybody that attacks you, anybody, we don't care who they are, we're going to attack them, that doesn't apply. It appears it's going to be selective, most likely directed at Israel.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I wasn't sure about, because I said, okay, I think Saudi Arabia is doing this so that they have other people to fight back against Yemen. Pakistan tends to be a little bit more neutral. They were at least neutral with that MOU.
Correct.
So, but Pakistan also has a nuclear weapon. Do you feel as though Pakistan still feels like they're at danger?
That the Houthis are a danger, or
That that Pakistan is in danger, even though they have a nuclear weapon?
well, no, I think again the only other country in the region with a nuke that they have to be worried about is Israel, and that's why I think creating this Muslim alliance that's anchored with Turkey's got the largest army, Pakistan's got nukes, Saudi Arabia's got a checkbook. Okay, they got money. So that is, that puts that alliance on a potential solid foundation. Now, at the same time, Turkey has been out saying, "Oh, to NATO, no, we're not abandoning you. We got something on the side here. They're like working part-time as a security guard."
But what does that mean for Iran? Because
well, Foreign Minister Fidan of Turkey said in a statement earlier today, I believe, he made it pretty clear they're not going to be attacking Iran. And Foreign Minister Araghchi of Iran made a point when this was signed of praising it as a coming together of Muslim nations to act on behalf of Muslims. So now there were some voices in the Iranian legislature that criticized it, but so say a mixed reaction. But so far, there's been no indication that the Turkey, Saudis, or the Pakistanis are going to try to engage Iran militarily.
Okay, that's what I wasn't too sure about that the other day, because for people who are not aware, I do want to show you guys as well. Like I said, there's been a number of attacks. This was another one from Ansar Allah. It says they target port of Makkah under control of Saudi-led mercenary coalition in Yemen. I just want to show people this one here as well. Now, Larry, there are Saudi mercenaries that are in Yemen.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, this war it started 12 years ago between the Saudis and the Houthis, so understand, take Yemen. So it looks like a loaf of bread, basically. 1/3 of that loaf of bread contains 80% of the population. That 80% of the population are under the control of Ansar Allah. 2/3 of the rest of the country is under the control of this pro-Palestine, pro-Saudi group, but they only have about 20% of the population. So they're clearly outnumbered. When you match up the army, the military of Saudi Arabia against the Houthi military, the Houthis have about 50,000 more than the Saudis. So the Saudis, even with their militia in Yemen, they don't have enough to militarily conquer or defeat Ansar Allah. Now, the war's been on a hiatus for at least 2 years. But within that, there's been a blockade of certain aid going that normally would have arrived in Yemen. The Saudis have blocked it. And that's been one of the issues with the Yemenis or the Houthis. And so, this is one where there should be an easy solution, where the Saudis get together with the Yemenis and say, okay, we're going to leave you alone. We're not going to blockade you. They should just let it go, because the Ansar Allah, these Yemenis, they're the oldest Arab population in the Saudi Peninsula. The Saudis, they were a bunch of Bedouins, so they were, until oil, they fell into, they're sort of the Jed Clampett of the Middle East, up through the grounds came some bubbling crude. Until that, they were living sort of like the hillbillies. And then now all of a sudden they're in the Beverly Hills mansion. But the Yemenis historically they're back centuries.
That's interesting. Okay. So I think that obviously this situation that's happening here with Yemen and Saudi Arabia continues to be, it seems like an ongoing thing, at least for
Yeah,
right now.
you're absolutely right.
And Iran just announced recently, for those who are not aware, that they are not fully opening the Strait of Hormuz until all of their demands are met. And they have new demands now. Uh, I don't know if everybody heard about this, but they've increased the demands. And so Donald Trump is melting down. I don't know if you heard about what's happening in the Situation Room. They are now
No.
saying that there were threats towards possibly removing Pete Hegseth. Donald Trump is denying that, but that's one of the things that have been reported. Another one that's been reported is that he is willing to end the war. Let me go ahead and bring this in here. Donald Trump is willing to end the war, declare victory on Iran with no nuclear deal. In other words, he may be willing to walk away from all of it and just say, we won, and not have that nuclear deal.
Yeah, that would be the smart thing to do. Let me just modify what you said about the demands. I'd call it a clarification of their demands, because if you go back and look at the 10-point paper that Iran delivered to the United States in early April in reply to a 15-point plan that the U.S. had given them, it was an end to these wars. Now, they didn't spell what they did the other day, and you're correct in noting it. They spelled out specifically, and what we mean is Lebanon, the Palestinian cause, Gaza and West Bank, and Yemen. They named all three, that the wars have to stop against them. And so one of their, so I'll call that an amplification of their prior requirements. Everything else they said was, it was there. It was in that original 10-point proposal or response to the U.S. proposal. But the Trump administration is in chaos. They can't figure out whether to, scratch their butt or itch their nose. They're trying to figure out which one to do. On the one hand, there's indications that they may actually be gearing up for another strike on Iran.
Yep.
And if they do that, Iran is going to escalate in a very significant way, and it's going to cause tremendous damage in Israel and to U.S. forces in Jordan and in Israel, as well as to what is left of U.S. military infrastructure in the Persian Gulf. Most of that has been destroyed, and U.S. Troops have pulled out. But then on the other hand, you get this, where the other indicator was one of the Heritage Foundation founders, Jim Carafano. He put out a piece the other day. Hey, Trump has won! Great victory for Trump. I'm thinking, okay, here you come. It's the narrative creation. You convince everybody, oh yeah, Trump has won. He declares victory, goes home. They've got to get the Strait of Hormuz open, because the closure of the Strait of Hormuz is a major factor in a growing global shortage of diesel and aviation fuel. And a lot of that has to do with the nature that the oil that comes out of the Persian Gulf is called sour crude. The major refineries that treat sour crude are on the Gulf Coast of the United States, whether you call it Gulf of America or Gulf of Mexico, take your pick. I prefer Gulf of Mexico just from history. Also India, China, and Japan, South Korea. Now, within that, but during the first 3 months until the signing of the MOU, or actually until Trump abandoned the MOU, China was withholding its purchases of global oil in order to try to help contain demand. But when Trump walked away from the MOU, the Chinese said, okay, we're not going to do that. We're not going to help you out anymore. So they've started buying up oil, which is now putting more and more pressure on global supply. the critical player in this is Japan, South Korea. They rely upon 90% of their oil imports came from the Persian Gulf. So you lose that 90%. It's not like, there's another store to go to, say, okay, I've been buying at Aldi's or Kroger's or Giant or whatever. Now I'm going to go to Walmart and buy. No, there's not an alternative. And so the only way they've been getting along is by drawing out oil reserves, petroleum reserves that they don't have a lot of. And we also saw that yesterday, South Korea made a special plea to the Europeans, said, hey, please let us buy natural gas from Russia. You'd sanction us, but we don't have an alternative. We need the gas. So it's starting to impact. So they need to get the Persian Gulf open in theory. But even if it's open, this is the other thing a lot of experts and analysts have overlooked or don't understand. The oil terminals, the gas terminals, those have been damaged and damaged significantly. So they're not going to come online immediately. Plus, the guys and gals that do the repair and maintenance on those are mostly American contractors. Well, those American contractors generally lived on U.S. in or around U.S. military bases, and they had their warehouses with their replacement parts in those military bases. Well, guess what? Those have all been blown up, and all those contractors have left the area. So even if they open it tomorrow, it's like, okay, where's my Maytag repairman? Oh, he left the country. He won't be back for a while. So they've got a problem on that front. So it's not even if it gets open with an agreement Monday, Tuesday, we're still looking at months before there's any possibility of some return to normalcy, which means this global economic crisis that is yet to be fully acknowledged or admitted to by the Trump administration, it's going to continue to grow and expand. It'd be a bigger problem come October and November.
Yeah, this is what many of us were afraid of with the Strait of Hormuz and other factors as well. Benjamin Netanyahu made an announcement earlier as well. He said he does not need permission from the United States government to attack Iran. So everyone get ready for that, because it looks like Israel may try to strike Iran yet again. Just FYI. I don't see any of this stopping, at least, like before we were talking about before the midterms. I don't see that stopping. But the fact that Benjamin Netanyahu publicly said that he doesn't need the U.S. permission to strike Iran, everyone needs to take note.
Well, he may not need U.S. permission per se, but he sure as hell needs U.S. refueling tankers. And he sure as hell needs Saudi Arabian permission to overfly Saudi Arabia, because I could see the Saudis potentially granting the U.S. permission, but they're not going to grant Israel permission at all. So that means Israel will have to try to overfly either Iraq or Saudi Arabia if they're going to launch an attack. And it's still, where are they going to get the refuelers? And if they do that, then all of a sudden, up to this point, Iran has held off on attacking Israel, putting Israel, in the ground. They can do so much damage now to Israel that I think it would threaten the very survival of Israel. You knock out their there's 2 refineries. They've already been damaged. One's in Ashdod, the other's in Haifa. If those get taken out, then Israel no longer has aviation fuel for combat jets, and no longer has diesel to run tanks and other armored vehicles. They would be in a world of hurt. I think this is Netanyahu, spouting off for campaign rhetoric without actually planning to go through with it. And then also on top of it, he called Donald Trump's baby ugly. Now, you know how any mother reacts when some stranger comes up and calls her kid ugly. The mama gets mad. And Donald Trump's a little bit like that, because this was his baby. This peace thing was his deal. And now Netanyahu said, we spit on your proposal. We don't recognize it. Boy, Trump's getting called out there in a major way, and I don't think Trump's going to sit back and take that. I think Bibi has now crossed the line with that, but we'll see. Otherwise, Trump just looks like, the shoe shine boy for Bibi Netanyahu.
There's also turmoil because he's now apparently realizing that the weapon shortage is true.
Yeah.
That the US just doesn't have any. He's yelling at people, generals, trying to tell him we just don't have the weapons, these types of weapons left. And apparently is losing it because he, again, things that he was warned about, going, into this and all that type of stuff. At the same time, he's getting demands from Zelensky asking for more weapons from the United States. So it's just
I don't want to. I'm not a fan of Pete Hegseth at all, but Trump blaming Hegseth for this was, it's not Hegseth's fault. This predates Hegseth. Of course, what did Hegseth do? He blamed Feinberg, the deputy. Oh, it's his fault. So I've had fun with this because, here's Hegseth, this ardent Christian. Here's Feinberg, this Jewish Zionist. So I'm saying, there he goes, blaming the Jew. But, the reality is that these shortages have been baked in, because 78% of the Department of Defense's main weapon systems for precision missiles, et cetera, are dependent on 5 rare earth minerals or 4 rare earth minerals and tungsten that come out of China. China controls the supply chain. So we're wanting to, quote, build more of these weapons, but the Chinese have said, whoa, wait a minute. We're not sending you any more of our rare earth minerals because you're going to build weapons that you're going to use to attack us. We're not crazy. So this problem started back, it's been in place since, it probably it goes back to George W. Bush. And then, Barack Obama, and then Trump and then Biden. So there's lots of blame to go around instead of anybody sitting down and said, okay, how are all these essential weapons, the Tomahawk, the JASSM, which is it's a cruise missile launched from an aircraft, the PAC-3 missiles, the air defense missiles for the Patriot system, the attack missiles that are fired out of the HIMARS, the PRISM missiles also fired from the HIMARS. All of those are dependent upon this Chinese supply chain. And even if the United States, appropriates another $1 trillion, you can't buy rare earth minerals. I've suggested, tongue in cheek, we need to update remember the old Beatles song? Well, you don't remember, you're not old enough, but I remember the old Beatles song, Can't Buy Me Love. Well, now we should say, Can't Buy Me Rare Earth Minerals.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that song, Larry. But yeah, this is crazy because I think that, looking at everything that's happening, what do you think the Trump administration thinks about this pact that was just signed between Saudi Arabia and Turkey and Pakistan?
I think they're scratching their head trying to figure out, okay, is this something we can use? And they'll come along with us and use it as an excuse to attack Iran. But the thing that gives me pause in that is, if they had signed that in Riyadh, then I'd be inclined to believe, okay, there's some U.S. intelligence manipulation behind this, maybe British intelligence. But the fact that they signed it in Mecca, and, look, Erdogan's a snake, MBS is a snake, Sharif's a nice little man out of Pakistan, no real clout. But the fact that they chose that location, they were making a statement that these are Muslims coming together with a pledge to protect Muslims. That's how I see it right now. Now, I could be proven wrong, but I think we're making a mistake if we underestimate that, because this was, they didn't just call each other up last week and say, "Hey, what are you doing next week? Can we like get together? Let's sign a security pact." No, this thing had been carefully negotiated. Now we haven't seen the language, so we don't know exactly what they agreed to. All we know is they came together at Mecca, they all signed it, and the declarations coming from it implied this is about protecting Muslims.
And if Israel is to attack Turkey, which they've already kind of alluded to more recently, that Turkey also needs to be liberated or whatever. If they were to attack Turkey, then this defense pact would come into effect.
Exactly. And not just it comes into effect with a country that's got nuclear weapons. So another pause for Israel in its aggressive imperialist actions in the Middle East. That they attack Turkey, they're also attacking Pakistan. And in that case, I think both would respond. I mean, Israel would be insane to try to do something like that.
Yeah, that would be weird. I mean, my whole thing is that where does this leave Yemen? Because Saudi still does have that blockade. Like, like they still have that blockade on Yemen. For those who are not aware, like there's a huge humanitarian crisis in Yemen. And where does that leave them?
You know, those Yemenis, man, they are hard as woodpecker lips. They are tough. They have already, there's only 2 countries in the last 15 years that can claim they went toe to toe with the United States, and the United States had to back down. So, first one is Yemen. You know, we had at one point we had 2 carrier strike groups in the Red Sea, trying to bomb the Houthis into submission, trying to destroy their ability to launch ballistic missiles. And after the United States lost close to $1.6 billion in MQ-9 Reapers drones and 3 F-18s that were probably, total $190 million on that front, maybe more. The United States declared victory and left, just like what's being proposed now with respect to the Persian Gulf. Remember, after we said, the Houthis capitulated, we're going home, and we did. And the Houthis didn't change a thing. So the Houthis have withstood a Saudi war for 10 years, backed completely by the West. They stopped that. They stopped the United States. And then you've got Iran, who now has stopped the United States. So this is, for the rest of the world, this is like the moment of revelation, because everybody has assumed the United States was, so big, so tough, so bad, couldn't stand up against them. And now they're looking and saying, the Houthis did it, the Iranians did it, and, the Russians are doing it in Ukraine against the United States and all of NATO. So all of a sudden, the myth of the invincibility of Western military power has been exploded.
Yeah. It's kind of like I think Trump should be embarrassed. The U.S. government probably, and you imagine being a fly on that wall, but there's probably some other conversations that we have not been privy to where there is this sense of embarrassment. You embarrass the United States government on the world stage because it's just, you can claim victory, but we've all seen the videos. It is very clear. Like, we know that Iran is kicking like the U.S. butt and Yemen joining in and all this stuff. Like we've seen the videos. It's very clear. People know like what's happening. And then if he does decide to take that advice and to walk with no agreement with the nuclear, then that's going to say something too.
Correct. Now, look, the Iranians prior to this, they were willing to make a nuclear deal. They already had with JCPOA, and it was Trump that walked away from that. One of the concerns I have are people like Scott Bessent, the Secretary of Treasury. Now, if you listen to his comments, I think they were made either yesterday or today. I don't know if it was on one of the Sunday talk shows, but he basically said, well, we're going to build underground pipelines, and that'll make the Strait of Hormuz no longer relevant. You know, I thought he was a smart guy. That is the damnedest, stupidest thing anybody could say. Okay, yeah, you got a place to pipe underground oil. What about the 25% supply of LNG that was coming out of Qatar? What about the 44% of the global supply of helium that was coming out of Qatar? What about the sulfur, the 35% of the world supply of sulfur and urea that was coming out of the Persian Gulf? You're going to put those in underground pipelines? No. And in fact, helium, you can't really do that with helium. It has to be stored in a special way. So that's why this is, you know, but Besson is there. Oh, yeah, these Iranians are nothing. We got them under control. No, you don't. And again, if Trump's getting that kind of advice, it's not entirely Donald Trump's fault that he's being stupid. He's getting stupid advice.
First of all, even if that were the case, it takes time to build pipelines underground. And this is crazy.
Wait. That's your problem. You have too much common sense. Stop thinking rationally and logically. We're in the world of make believe here. Good Lord. Yeah. No, you are so right. Good. You know, God Almighty.
It takes me back to the Nord Stream pipeline, right? Like like people were asking, well, who blew up the Nord Stream? We did. It was us.
Yeah.
And
there's actually some of that pipeline still can be operated, but the Europeans said, no, we don't want it anymore. Okay.
Yeah, this is a doozy. I think that right now, I know Iran's foreign minister said right now there's no agreement to be made, or no agreement that has been accepted. And
Correct.
the U.S. has stopped striking Iran at this point in time.
Well, yeah, and I hope that continues. I've picked up some rumblings from buddies still on the inside that are connected to these operations. And there's some indications that the United States may be gearing up to make one more run at Iran to try to coerce them through military force. But we do know from previous press reports in the last week or so that like General Dan Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who is Trump's, by law, top military advisor, has said, don't do it. We don't have enough weapons stock. If we proceed down this road, if we use JASSMs, if we use Tomahawks, we're going to use. We don't really have any prisms left to use. That's out. ATACMS, they're exhausted. And anyway, ATACMS are irrelevant because they can't really reach across the Gulf. The only part of Iran they can hit is if you launch them from Kuwait into the northwest corner of Iran. So, he's saying if we exhaust our missile supply here, we got nothing left if we have to deal with China or Russia. And the commander of PACOM, Pacific Command, and the commander of EUCOM, Grinkovich. The other day, Brad Cooper, the guy in charge of CENTCOM, Central Command, that oversees the war against Iran, he called upon the European commander, say, okay, bring those destroyers from the Sixth Fleet. We need them off the shore of Israel to provide air protection because we're out of air defense missiles. And Grinkovich said, no, we're not doing that. We do that, you're gonna strip me, and I can't do my mission. So unless he's overridden by an order from the president of the United States, they're not doing it. And this is, I've witnessed these battles between what they call theater commanders in chief, theater syncs, the commander of EUCOM, the commander of CENTCOM, commander of PACOM, and then you get commander AFRICOM. When you start messing with what they consider to be their assets, they get a little grumpy and say, no, that's not going to happen. So there's you got some chaos on that front.
This is really interesting, and it makes you wonder, like, what's going to happen. What's going to happen post midterms the rest of this year? Because there could be some changes, like in Congress, like congressional changes, and maybe they could reintroduce that War Powers Act again.
Well, you're seeing right now that within the Democrat Party, the number of people that have won the nomination and have ousted existing members of Congress who were very, if you will, pro-Israel. The ones coming in are not. They've taken a decidedly different tact. And then within the Republican Party, you've got tremendous division. I'm offering up, a parallel to 1854. So in 1854, the dominant party, you had the Democrats under, Andrew Jackson's party, and you had the Whigs. Now, the Whigs split over the issue of slavery because they came in with this Kansas-Nebraska Act, I think it was, and they're talking about, we're going to leave it up to each state to decide whether they want to be able to own slaves. And there were principled members of the Whig Party that said, oh, hell no, we're not agreeing to that. And they split off. And with them, they also carried some Democrats who were also anti-slave. And that formed the new Republican Party. So that Whig Party it disappeared into history. Nobody remembers it. Two of our presidents were considered Whigs. And, and if you put a gun to most people's head to name them, they couldn't. I think one was like Franklin Pierce. But I think we're in a similar situation now within the Republican Party / MAGA movement. There has been a complete division over the issue of Zionism. Are we going to support Israel first or not? I did an interview 2 days ago with Mark McCluskey. You remember Mark and his wife during the Black Lives Matter protests. They lived in St. Louis. They were standing outside their home. He had an AR, and his wife was waving a pistol around. Well, in 2016, he ran Trump's campaign in Pennsylvania. So we're not talking some guy who just was like, yeah, I'm a Trump supporter. No, we're talking some guy who was in there up to his eyeballs working with Trump. And today, he is completely split from Trump over the issue of supporting Israel over the cause of supporting America.
That guy?
That guy.
Does everybody remember that guy and his wife? And they showed up outside with the guns towards the protesters?
Yeah.
That guy.
That guy, yes, ma'am. Wow. So that tells you something. That we're, and when you look at the split with people like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, people that were considered, strong supporters of Trump, and have now, over this whole issue with respect to the war in Iran and this unblinkered support for Israel, that has created a genuine split within the Republican Party, and I think it's on the scale of the split that tore the Whigs apart, and I think this very well could tear the Republicans apart.
Very interesting. I do know, of course, Tucker Carlson did talk about his 10 points of what he would consider to be part of, like a third party. He had that meeting recently with Thomas Massey and others. And most of those points, again, like as someone on the left, like most of those points he said I agreed with, right? And my whole thing is just like, keep it simple. Just keep it simple. Like, don't complicate things. But yeah, obvious some shift happening there. And then ultimately you have those independents that are right leaning too, that supported Trump, that are now like, what the hell is this? Like, again, over Israel.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, I mean, it's real. The division is, well, in fact, I was at a conference last week put on by Robert Barnes. Remember, Robert was Trump's attorney back in 2016. And let's see, the pollster Rich Barris was there. Danny Davis was there. Alexander Mercouris and Alex Cristoforo from the Duran, they were there. But so they don't count on American politics. They're both, one's British Greek and the other one's Greek. But everybody else, again, and within this crowd, I would have classified many of them as former MAGA supporters. But this issue of supporting Israel has really gotten under the skin of some people. And then I won't begin to talk about the angry mothers. So I got an email a couple of weeks ago from this lady, mother of a sailor who was on the USS Tripoli. And she was saying, they starved my son. My son came home, he lost 30 pounds. Now, I saw the kid's picture before he deployed. He was not some fat body. He was a physically fit kid. He was not in a position to lose 30 pounds, unlike me. Okay, I could lose 30. And it was a terrible food. They were not being adequately fed. So I thought, well, maybe that was an isolated incident. Then at the conference, one woman came up to me and to chat and said, "Oh, I watched you with Mario," and she said, "My son just came back from deployment. Oh, he's a Marine. He was on the Boxer." I said, "Oh, I've heard." I said, "Did he have any problems with food?" "Oh, let me tell you, man, here was another angry mama bear. That the U.S. military is not feeding their children properly. They're asking them to go out and make these sacrifices, put their lives on the line, but they're getting food that you wouldn't feed to your dog." And so this is widespread. This is not isolated. And I just saw yesterday, day before, there was a town hall meeting out in San Diego with the family members of the USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier. They were making the same angry complaints. And the Secretary of the Navy was getting lit up like a Christmas tree. So this just further underscores the military. We're talking about fighting everybody. We're not taking care of the kids that we're putting out there in harm's way to do the fighting.
Yeah, I've seen some of the images of the food that they were feeding them. I saw some of it and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. So yeah, that's how they're treating them.
I mean, there was school lunch. I never had a school lunch that looked like that back in the day, you know? And school lunches were never known for being, the cutting edge of high cuisine. But, at least the food was edible and, you could, it wasn't going to cause you to lose weight. But, these kids they were losing weight. And, 30 pounds,
Wow.
her son looked like an emaciated victim, not quite concentration camp quality, but close. He came back skin and bones.
That's wild, dude. That's totally wild. Larry, where can people follow your work?
I'm at sonar21.com, and they can follow me there, and they're welcome to sign up, and no charge. It's all free. If they want to make a donation, they can, but I feel an obligation. This is public service. I've got to put the information out there so people can get what the mainstream media is not supplying. I wrote an article on April 3rd detailing the shortage of the Patriot missiles. I mean, that was 4 months ago. And now all the news media is reporting, oh, breaking news. Yeah, you're 4 months late, you clowns.
They copy. They do copy. They will read or watch indie media and then they'll copy and put it in their own words.
Yeah. I'm doing the work for them so they don't have to.
All right, Larry, thank you so much for your time.
Sabby, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for the invitation. I thoroughly enjoy our conversations. Thank you so much.
All righty. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, ladies and gents, that was Larry Johnson. Again, always a great time. A lot of things, like I said, you guys, happening in the Middle East. So we just got to stay tuned. I'm pretty sure Trump is due for another embarrassment at some point or another. That concludes our Sunday show. Eric is going to close us out, ladies and gents, and he'll also finish the super chats as well.
Yeah, I got a few super chats. Yeah, stealing from the indie media makes me think of the Gray Zone. Of course, all the time they're way ahead of everybody, and then they come up with some story, and then Max will tweet, "Oh yeah, we covered that last year," you know. So.
Yep. They do this. They've done this for quite some time too, and like they won't even credit you either. Like they'll just see that somebody, oh, let me see this, and then they'll go and like kind of use their own words a little bit there, and then they'll
Big scoop, yeah.
Yep.
Oh well. All right, we'll let you get on with your Sunday. I'll close out some chats here, and we'll see what we got.
All righty. All right. Thanks. Bye, guys. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.
All right. Well, Sabby, go on with her Sunday. We got a few chats to cover here. What was I thinking? Oh, the one thing I always think of when there's talk about the U.S. running out of weapons and blowing through them, which they're doing, of course, is that what I always think of is that that military-industrial complex and the war billionaires that own it are not unhappy about that, because if we hit it, they'll replace them, and they'll replace them paid for by our federal dollars. And so I think we always should be mindful of that. It's if we have a big crisis of where they can say, oh, we've run out of missiles, run out of weapons, and we're in danger with this big crisis, then that'll make it easy to pass legislation in Congress to spend even more on the military-industrial complex, on the war machine. So I think that's part of why you may see, in terms of politics, in terms of policies, in terms of the interest, in terms of who's advising Trump and pushing him, that they're not so unhappy about blowing through weapons stocks, because those war billionaires see the weapons stocks as profit. So I just think we always want to keep that in mind. And it's both parties. This is part of what we're dealing with and what we always come back to on this show. And we see it with these so-called progressive candidates on the Democratic Party, or the MAGA candidates, or the whatever you want to call them on the Republican side. When it comes down to it, both parties are corporate, both are corrupt. They both support the war machine. They're both full of warmongers. Any candidate that I think people who think like us, let's say, are the Sabby audience, and from the 11 demands mindset, any candidate that we would support should already be calling out both parties and the leadership of both parties as being warmongers, as being corrupt to the core, being genocidal. And if they're not doing that, then you really have to wonder what's really going on there. The real answer is to exit both wings of the duopoly of the uniparty, start something new based on clear demands. It's like Sabby's been saying pretty regularly that this is going to need a movement, and she was teasing that coming up next week she's going to do a segment on movements and how that kind of thing happens. And the biggest thing with movements is movements need clear demands. When you look at the ones that have worked, that have really gotten somewhere, if you dig down, they had clear demands, right? The civil rights movement, it was pretty clear what they wanted. If you look at the Palestinian and rights and the Free Palestine movement, I should say, in Gaza, that was pretty hot or so last year or so. There was that clear demand: Free Palestine, stop killing children, innocent people in Gaza. Pretty clear demands. So that's really key. If you want to see what those demands look like, check out the old 11demands.org. There's a pretty clear list, pretty clear set on there that I think, and I think a fair number of us think, is a good starting point, something to build around. We need a way to bring it all together, right? Whether it's direct action backed by mutual aid, whether it's electoral politics, trying to get us a real democracy, it starts with clear demands and going from there. And we all need to kind of come together, organize, figure out how to get this into a big movement. All right. Let's see what we got in the old super chat queue here on YouTube. We have a few here. Thanks for this super chat from Mr. Roger Meadows, who's calling that guy the Caucasian Sagar. All right. And thanks for the super chat from Dublin Fitzpatrick, who says, nobody is listening to the people. That's all. Yeah, and that's what, a real movement is about. Our government does listen to people, but the people, it's only billionaire people that our government listens to. It's like people, it's like when people make comments on how the Democratic Party does, and it's like, why aren't they effective? Why are they so weak? Why don't they do things for us? Well, Democratic Party, and the Republican Party, of course, they are very effective. They actually get a lot done. They just don't get it done for us. The things they get done are for the billionaire class and their huge corporations, whether it's the wars, tax breaks, the whole tax system. They're great at getting stuff done. It's just they don't represent us. Our core demand is to have a government that represents the 99% and works in their interests. It really is as simple as that in terms of the core demand. Thanks for the super chat from Davis Mew, who says, Byron Donalds, the Jaffakian. All right. And thanks for this one, Roger, who says about that guy there says he didn't lie. He's a Brooklynite from Jamaican. All right. And let's see here. Thanks for the super chat from RNTV, who says, hey, Sabby, I've been trying to reach you. I have an AES, Alliance of Sahel analyst, for you to try to bring on your show. It's hard to get in contact with you. Next to this one, too, his name is Andre TV for the AES. Appreciate that. R&R, we try to respond and look into things as best we can. And we'll try to make a note of that one. And thanks for this super chat from 24 Lindsay, who says, thank you, Sabby. We love you from Utah. Well, thank you. And Sabby, thanks you. And we appreciate all our viewers, which are all over the place. And that's pretty cool. All right. I think that takes care of our cues here. I think we're going to call it a Sunday from here on the Sabby Show. I want to thank everyone for watching and for your super chats and listening to me for a couple minutes. Our next live show will be should be on Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And until then, have a good night, keep up that fight, and we'll see you all next time. And peace out.